Hey. What's up, everybody? Welcome back. Good to see you. Good to see you. Thanks for joining me tonight. So great to be here with you guys once again. Getting all this time in for you guys. I hope you are all excited for this story tonight, guys. This case is still an open case, folks. The Zodiac killer. Yes. Based on a true story that the movie Zodiac, actually there was a few movies that this one was based off of. Sorry guys, yes, I'm still sick as I was earlier, so please bear with me. I'm sorry. Not so great, Miss Jody, but I'm here doing what I'm doing. No more Curtis trying to get Nicola justice. You sound worse. Do you feel better? No, I don't feel better. Not yet. I gotta get to a doctor, folks. That's all. Once I get to a doctor and get some meds going through me, I'll be okay. Mr. David James, welcome back, my brother. Welcome back. Let's see, where's all my mods at? Mrs. M, thanks so much for joining us tonight, David. As always, such a pleasure, my friend. Ms. Pookie Maduda, welcome back. Miss Jody Walters, great to have you here on the mic, my brother. Great to see you. Thanks for coming back. Thanks for joining us once again, Miss Brandy. Always good to see you, my dear. Miss Mama, crime time with Mama Bear's here, folks. Gotta love it. Mama Bear will be here, I'm sure, for a short period of time. She's got to get herself to bed. Got to get that sleep so she can be in here and deal with me in the morning sometime, hopefully. Let's see here. Miss Heather's in the house. So great to have you here, Heather. As always, Miss Heather, if you could please do me a favor, since we are live, folks. I want you guys to know something, that mental health, my friends, is a real thing. It's a sad thing that affects a lot of people all over the world, guys. All over America, all over the United States, overseas. You know, the UK, as we see with a lot of these cases, the UK and, Australia and all that kind of stuff, guys. It's an important thing. If we could put a link in there for, we do advertise to promote mental health and helping with mental health, folks, in this channel. We have numbers we put up here and there. If you're feeling like you need to talk to somebody, guys, please reach out and do it. Don't ever feel like you need to be alone. I know we have some numbers that we post up for anybody that might need it. It's just one of them things, guys. Sometimes people don't even know that they're dealing with it, and things happen, and next thing you know, you're in a situation. It's a bad thing, and it's not to be ashamed of. We all deal with things in our own ways, in our own times, on a regular basis, folks. So please, if you know somebody that needs help, reach out. If you know somebody that doesn't realize they need help them to reach out. As I said, I know we have some numbers in here. We'll probably post up here for anybody that knows somebody. Not saying that anybody in here needs that, but if you know somebody, I've been reading a lot of stuff lately, and it's just kind of getting to me a little bit about things like that going on. So, folks, if you ever need to be, and you're in that situation, be the helping hand, because it only takes one person to help in a situation like that, and you could be that one person. Even if it's just giving somebody a number, even if it's, referring somebody down the street to a doctor you might have heard of, or a doctor, any little things, guys. Like David said, if you're in a dark place, please reach out. Never feel like you're alone. These are facts, folks. These are facts. Lord. There you go. Thank you, Miss Brandy. You can call Talkspace at 1-800-273-8255. That's awesome, Miss Brandy. Thank you so much for that. I appreciate you, sis. Like I said, everybody needs a little bit of help every now and then. Absolutely, Pookie. This is an interesting case that is still open, guys. It's cold, but it's open. At some point, they thought that they knew who this person was. A couple times, but there were some things that changed up the what am I trying to say? The evidence, that made it look a different direction. It was definitely a very interesting a very interestingly weird case, guys. To be absolutely truthful, there was only 5 unalivings that were recorded under police jurisdiction, but um, Zodiac himself admitted to more than 37 unalivings, folks, that were never clarified, to say the very least. That's a scary thing. And as far as we know, one moment, everybody.
Did anybody say anything?
I don't know.
Anything at all?
That was actually a wrong number. Thank you, Mama Bear. That is so super helpful there as well. And that's a fact, Pookie. He could still be around, guys. He could be lurking around California in a retirement home. Nobody knows. 80 years old or older, Depending on how old he was when these crimes were committed, he very well could be still alive. There was some point, there was a gentleman that became obsessed with this case, and a Mr. Arthur Lee Allen ended up being a suspect at some point throughout the case, and in the end, ended up back to him. Mr. Robert Graysmith was a cartoonist that worked for the San Francisco Chronicle. He worked alongside with the very popular Mr. Paul Avery. That was a reporter that worked there, and they became friends. They worked together on this, worked out different pieces of puzzles. When Zodiac would call in with his letters, or write in with his letters, or call in and stuff like that, they would break these things down, so on and so forth. And Mr. Graysmith became completely and totally obsessed, to the point where he lost his family over this, because he was nonstop into this, okay? Wanting to solve this. And at the very end of this, based on what you guys have seen in the movie, which is very much on point from what I understand, as you'll see here when I get into it, he was the last person he put it together with a detective, Dave Toshi, okay, that was on that case for years. And because it was an open case, Mr. Toshi could not, or Detective Toshi could not talk about the case with Mr. Graysmith. And they became acquaintances over the years, like back and forth. Mr. Graysmith became obsessed with this and wanted to solve this case. He couldn't let it go. And I know that feeling. You guys know I know that feeling. So, and all he was a cartoonist for the local newspaper, guys. And him and Mr. Avery together did things over the years. Mr. Avery moved on and did other things Mr. Graysmith didn't. Until he came to the end of his time with it. And at the end, he came to the point where it was, in his mind, Mr. Arthur Lee Allen again. They looked into Mr. Allen, and just as they were going to question him about certain things that had gone on, Mr. Allen had a massive heart attack and passed away. It kind of sucks, because it still leaves it open-ended. And then, during this time, during the investigation that Mr. Graysmith was covering all of this stuff, basically doing what we do, folks. But he traveled all over the place trying to get clues on this and looking for things and doing this and doing that. I mean, he was head first in this. He was getting phone calls the whole time he was looking into Arthur Lee. From the day that Arthur Lee Allen passed away, Mr. Graysmith no longer received the phone calls that he was getting. Breathing into telephone, heavy breathing, stuff like that. They stopped when Arthur passed away, folks. he in fact made his way to Arthur Allen was a school teacher at one time, and obviously could no longer do that as he became a sex offender or SO. And like I said, once he retired, or once, well, I shouldn't say retired, once he lost his job. Good evening, Miss Cece. Thank you for joining us. Excuse me. Once he lost his job as a school teacher, who knows if he ended up being Zodiac, if that was his trigger. I mean, nobody knows. Okay. But he was a school teacher, and right around, I want to say, I think it was 1992 is when he finally passed away. They never got to question him about it, but there was multiple reasons why he was looked at as Zodiac, guys. It's very strange, and so therefore, in turn, it's still wide open, folks. Wide open. Very crazy case. Excuse me, folks. Yes, Miss Heather, thank you for that. That I'm not quite sure of, Pookie. I don't know if there is any still, in archived evidence or anything like that. But yes, there are some sensitive topics here. Thank you, Heather, for the trigger warning. I do appreciate that. So, like I said, guys, this one was definitely an interesting one. Of all the cases I've seen over the years, and local, modern, old case, I mean, this one really, really kind of hits home because it was just, he would it was kind of like he played with police. He wrote letters, he did this, he did that. I mean, it was definitely really, really interesting, folks. And it's always kind of mesmerized me, to be honest with you. So hence the reason why we're looking into it tonight, to get the true story out of the movies that they've made out of it. There's been a couple that I've seen. The most popular one is the one that has, I think it was from 2007 with Jake Gyllenhaal. Gyllenhaal, is that how you say it? Jake Gyllenhaal. Turned out to be a pretty good one. Really, really did. So, let me see here. So let's see, David James, my brother, good to see you. Like I said, Miss Cece, April Stoll, welcome back. Pookie Madudo. Let's see, I think everybody else has time with Yep. Welcome, everybody. Kind of trying to wait around just a little bit to see who all I get to come in here before I get rolling. All right, guys, give me a moment here. I got to grab my drink and hang loose for a moment. I'll be right with you. We'll get into the true story about the Zodiac killer, folks. Good to see you all. Thank you all for jumping in. If you don't mind, guys, please hit that like button on your way in the door. I would really, really, really appreciate that, guys. Don't forget to leave some comments at the end of the show. Share this out. Please let me know what you think. Be right back. Sorry. It took so long, folks. I am back. I had to make myself some hot tea so I can keep talking to you guys. Welcome, Transporter Popper. What's up? Good to see you guys. Zodiac, was there not a film made about him? Oh, that's what we're doing tonight, Transporter. We're telling a true story behind the movie Zodiac that had Jake Gyllenhaal in it. And there's quite a few others, actually, but I think there are like 3 or 4 actual movies. There's been quite a few people claiming to be, that knowing who Zodiac was. Again, the most popular suspect being Train Spolta. Just sitting in the trailer talking to my roaches pup. You guys are a mess. Thank you guys all for joining me tonight. Great to see you here. There is a $35 door charge when you come in the door. Just leave it at the door. I'm just kidding, guys. I love you guys. Surfer dude, California got life in a federal prison, man. He did some bad words. His kids with a spear gun because they were part lizard, he said. That was some bad weed that dude got. That's all I gotta say. Either that or a really bad acid trip. I'm just saying. Damn, David. That would be some shit, wouldn't it? Right. Thank you guys for joining me tonight. Oh, man. Uh, 18 peeps. Come on, everybody. Grab your popcorn, your pop, your coffee, your tea, whatever you're drinking, whatever you want. Come on in and let's listen to the story. Let Papa Dago tell everybody their own bedtime story, right? Yeah, Popper will be standing at the door collecting $35 from everybody. He needs to get himself a new computer anyway. You know, he's already got an Alienware, so he needs something better than that. Yeah, right. I gotta love it. Gonna patch up those glory holes soon, promise. Yeah, I gotcha. Definitely a wine night. Mr. Mike and his wine. That's some good stuff there, my friend. A little bit of Dago Red. I used to love that stuff. Hence my name. Hopper, what do you take IOUs? Yeah, that's fine, Miss Brandy. Yeah, there's been a few of them there. Like I said, the Arthur Lee Allen was the most popular suspect. There is a new suspect that had popped up over a couple years period of time by the name of Gary Posty or Post. It's pronounced. That's a new story. I could probably show you something about that, but I was hoping everybody would be in here. Wanted to start off, but what's up, Strike? Welcome, bud. Miss CC, the sweetest lady on the internet. Thanks for joining us tonight. Oh, I better let a couple people know. Maybe that's why. Where is Miss Gina? I haven't seen her in a while. I never took that surgery. Let me see. Send out some notifications. The trick is to call Orkin, and they use the fabulous stuff the first time, and that's all you need. Void or don't sign the contract. There you go. That's a good point there, Pookie. Let me see. Mrs. M is here. Let's see. Pamela said she couldn't because she had to get up early. I get that. Okay. Stacy, I'll let her know. Where is Tuna? There she is. I think I got everybody. Miss Heather's in here. Is Molly in here? Where you at, Molly girl? Kitty kitty, Molly cat, where you at? I'm telling you what, Molly. Make me come looking for you. I got your DNA, remember? Alrighty, hello. Moderators, again, guys, if you could please, as I had spoken about yesterday and earlier this morning, watch out for new people coming in, mods. Just keep your eyes open, is all I'm saying. The king of the mods, Mr. Popper, is watching over everything as he always does. But excuse me, just keep your eyes open, mods, and you know what to do. Anybody that doesn't look like they belong, or anybody suspicious. Alrighty, I think I got everybody notified. Tested a truck with a circus show. Oh wow! And down in Florida, you got them big old like cat-sized roaches down there. That is not cool. They probably snort organ stuff by at this point, Popper. Yeah. April. She's probably no longer going to be with us, April, sadly. For anybody else that needs to know, sadly, it didn't work out with her, and she decided to pull out, move along. We were having some harassing things happening here with another person, and it just ended up being involved with her. So she took it upon herself to just walk away, I guess, and I guess that's what's best for the channel at this point. So she won't be around anymore, Miss April. So that's what's going on there. I wish her the best of luck in everything she does, but it just didn't work out over here, that's all. Oh my god, you guys, I'm sorry. Alright, well, like people are leaving, not coming, so I guess nobody wants to be in here for this. That's okay. No worries. Yeah. Guess we will get to rolling then, everybody. Give me a moment here. Set this up. I gotta pull up this recording. And it's gonna tell you this story a little bit more than what I told you just now. There's a little bit more to it, so. Okay, let's see. Bring it on, Pookie. Bring it on. I'm grateful, more than grateful to have anybody that's interested. Thank you, Pookie. We love it. We love you. Appreciate you. All right, let me get this to rolling. Excuse me. Yeah, setting it all up for you, folks. One moment. Well, we'll deal with all that stuff later. We'll just keep everything about the case we're talking about and the story we're talking about tonight. If there's anything personal, we'll deal with that on the sidelines, guys. Well, thank you so much, Pookie. I do appreciate that. Anybody you know that would be interested in this, please bring them on in. Please. Even during the day, we got plenty of room for plenty of people. Thank you so very much. I do appreciate you for that. Okay. I think we're about ready to roll. Of course, guys, as always, let me know how the volume and the audio is. Please. Why, thank you, Pookie.
Lake Herman Road was just a sleepy little road, 2-lane road. It was a shortcut from Vallejo to the Benicia area, Benicia Township. It was not very well traveled. It was not lit at all. Of course, there were no street lights. The turnout area where the crimes were committed was kind of a little lover's lane. People would stop there, and kids knew that. The Benicia High School kids knew that. Hogan High, the Vallejo High School kids all knew that transaction was there. Back and forth on that road, but you did not have a whole lot of traffic. There wasn't any traffic evening. It was teenagers or somebody just getting off work late and coming back over to Benicia. The population was probably around 5,000. It was a sleepy little community, middle class. Crime rate was very, very low per population, almost nil. Major crime at that time within the city, there would be a bar fight, a stolen car, minor thefts, some family disturbances. There were not any murders prior to that for at least 5 or 6 years.
I was the first officer. I was on patrol that night. My partner was sick. He couldn't make it. And Wayne Waterman was a new kid on the job. He was working in jail. We all worked in jail first. And he asked if he could ride with me. I said, sure. I'm glad to have him. We got a call from the sergeant that a man from Benicia who fishes at Lake Berryessa wasn't home. And that was around 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock. He asked us to look down Lake Herman Road and see if his truck was there. His truck. And just as we turned on Lake Herman Road, we had a call to go to the Hells Angels pad on Warren Street. We were there about 30, 40 minutes. When we got back in the car, we were told we had double 187 on Lake Herman Road.
During that night, we had served a search warrant at the
187 stands for Murder, Death, Kill,
owned by the city of Benicia. Search warrant,
in police talk.
And we confiscated about 1.5 pounds of marijuana, which, in the 1960s, that was a big drug bust. Today, it wouldn't get very high on the Richter scale. We had left. We're heading back to the police department to put the marijuana into evidence. And as we drove by, we did not observe or see anybody in that area because it's a turn there, and your headlights shine right in there as you go by.
I hope the volume is okay. I got it as loud as it'll let me.
As we're pulling into the lot in the police department, we heard the Benicia Police Department dispatcher put out a call of possible shooting and victims on Lake Herman Road and described the location. My partner and I turned around at that time and responded to the call.
In that,
when we got
maybe
there,
not exactly in that order, but that's how it's.
From Benicia, and one of
in police talk, it's 187 is murder, death, kill.
Car was headed east.
It was a Rambler, a two-tone Rambler. We first saw the first victim, the male, who was lying outside of the passenger door of a vehicle It appeared that he had a gunshot wound above the left ear. He appeared, or was actually breathing. It was a fairly cold night. It was late on a December night, and you could actually see his breath. I think that was just because his respiratory system was still intact to some extent. His brain hadn't actually shut down yet, which shut him down.
We never had too many murders. We solved them all, but there was just a few. But this one, and
Hey,
there was
Heather.
a gal who lived in a woman who lived in a house about a mile up, going towards Vallejo, and she saw the Benicia Police Department. She told them about it, and they were there first on the scene.
Of course, the sheriff's office was called because it is their jurisdiction, and Sloan County Sheriff's Office responded and actually handled the investigation. We stood around to assist their deputies and keep the press and other people away as they worked the crime scene.
We contacted the office, told them to have Sergeant Les Lundblad come. He was in charge. I was a patrolman at that time.
The boy was an Eagle Scout. The girl state, and there's no record
It
of
is.
any misbehavior
There's
on either
different.
one of them.
Why did this happen?
There's different murder, death, kill. They call by it. The California has like different penal codes and stuff, and they have different number ratings that they call everything out. It's a slang. It's bet you when they say 187 and stuff like that, they use it in hip hop and rap songs and stuff like that. But the actual meaning, it's the crime of murder. Okay, but they added down the road. There's a whole story behind this thing. It's kind of crazy. It's the number's commonly pronounced like 187. You say it like that, not 187. You just 187, and then each one of it, rather than 187 or anything like that, 187, and it's just the code for murder. Now, somewhere in the 90s, I can't remember which police department it is. I'll look this up and show you guys. It's kind of interesting. They came across the radio and they started calling it murder, death, kill. Because there are different variations of death. Okay. I probably shouldn't be saying this, but so this police department, because there were different people dying in different ways, this police department started saying that over the radio, and after since then it kind of caught on in different places. So it's interesting. Look it up, and it's got a whole story behind it. It's kind of crazy. The unlawful killing of a human being or fetus with malice aforethought. That is the actual definition of 187, which means murder, as Popper just said. So anyway, moving along.
It was a senseless murder, I believe.
He told me, he says,
Hell
follow the
yeah.
ambulance down
Ford
and
Rambler.
see if you can get any information. You know, that's where I found out about the ring. I noticed he had it like this, holding it like that, holding it like somebody was trying to take it. And the nurse, she said he died before he came in the hospital.
Looked to the rear of the vehicle and saw the female victim approximately 29 to 30 feet face down and had been shot multiple times.
She was shot full of holes. I forget how many. We got
A lot.
several shells from her where she was shot in the back.
The female victim had bled out, and it was obvious without even taking the pulse, which I did do. She was expired at the scene. I mean, she just completely. There was a lot of blood, and she completely just bled out. Where the female victim was laying, there was expended casings from a .22, and there was also casings, I believe, on the right side of the vehicle. There was one round that was fired through the right rear window, and we tried to figure out, was that a warning shot to get the victims out of the car? I don't think that was ever decided, although that round did not, to the best of my recollection, did not hit the male victim, that it went into the headliner of the vehicle.
Possibly they were ordered out of the car by the responsible, and the boy was shot right at the side of the car, and the girl apparently tried to run, and she was shot and found 28 feet further on.
There was one bullet hole that penetrated one of the windows of the car. Was this a stray bullet, or was this one of the bullets that hit the victim and went on through?
This could be a stray bullet or a warning bullet of some sort that we can't connect it with the bodies, but it's the same type of shell.
So I came back to the scene. Les was there. We went over everything, and that was it for that day. We worked till about 4 o'clock in the morning, checking every place and that, all the bullets we could find and that. Then the next morning, I got a call and they told me I was going to be an investigator on it.
It wasn't handled as you would handle it today, because I don't think there was the experience there to actually handle it that way. And you got to realize the first concern was the male victim. Is he still alive? Let's get him. Let's save a life here. Then, of course, they marked the bodies, and I'm sure they parked the patrol cars, and they walked around and looked and picked up the empty casings and so on and so forth. But under today's circumstances, because of the technology we have today that we didn't have then, they would have worked that crime scene for 24 hours. I mean, they would have taken earth samples. They would have looked for fiber. You would have looked for follic hairs, any hair. I mean, it would have been a lot more in depth just because they had the technology that today that they did not have in those days.
You know, in that half hour, we counted for it. There were people around that area, except for 6 minutes. And during that 6 minutes, that's when it all happened.
We felt that we were probably only minutes from the actual crime scene when it happened. And again, the best of my recollection, we did not pass any other vehicle traffic. And I'm pretty sure of that because that was one of the things that we told the sheriff's office. We did not see any other vehicles coming our way. Now, we take a bit of a shortcut. So what could have happened is, depending where a vehicle turned onto Lake Herman Road, if it came from behind us from Vallejo, we would not have seen them. Our feeling at that time is that the person came, or persons came from the Vallejo area and did not come from the Beach area. Once the Blue Rock Springs, the Vallejo case had occurred, I think that it really set into the residents of
Welcome,
Benicia,
Sherry. Yes.
Vallejo also, that we've got some kind of a crazed, and that's the term they were using at that time,
Right.
crazed killer out there. People couldn't figure out, what is he or she doing? What is this all about? What's the motive? And, you know, most homicides, in my experience, you know, if you can find the motive, you're going to find the responsible. And I think, you know, I've been out of law enforcement for a few years, but I think that the FBI statistics are still somewhere in the high 80s that most victims know their assailant. But when you have a random killing or killings without a motive, without any method of operation, and the method of operation were different between the two, theoretically, except it was a couple, it really starts to set in and really panic. And then you start thinking of, you know, and again, what they were talking about is a crazed killer, a madman or mad person who was out there just taking human life.
Why wasn't the Zodiac caught?
Beats the heck out of me.
Right, Pook.
I don't know. We could never nail down anybody on it.
I'm not sure that if we had, you know, like I said, the science we have today, that he'd be able to beat that. I really think if we had, you know, and again, it's like putting the cart before the horse.
Thank you,
but if we could take
Heather.
what we have today and go back then,
Again,
I
anybody
think that
that's
he
interested in
would have been
supporting me or the
arrested.
channel, please
again, everything
feel free,
academic at this
folks.
point.
I have the PayPal, Cash App, and the Venmo apps. The links are on screen there. It's very much appreciated. Please feel free if you choose.
Back at that time, Blue Rock Springs
It is
more or less a
pretty
rural
sad.
area. Vallejo had not expanded its city limits out that far yet, so it was a rather rural area.
On the weekends especially, there would be large crowds of people out there. They'd barbecue. At night, it really got dark. There were some street lights out there, but only a couple of them. It was kind of out in the boondocks. And the kids would use it parentally as a lover's lane. You could drive your patrol car by there, and there'd be 4 or 5 cars out there many times. People listening to the radio and doing whatever else they do in lover's lane.
It was July 4th, a holiday, and my partner, John Lynch, who was also a detective sergeant, he was the senior of our team. We worked a late shift, like 3 to midnight, something like that. And we were driving around. I was driving the plainclothes car. We were plainclothes detectives, and we were down. I think down around the downtown area in Vallejo, the old part of town, and it was close to midnight, and we heard reports of a possible shooting at Blue Rock Springs Park. And over the radio, they dispatched a patrol car, and so I said, I'm the younger by far of the two of us. So I told John,
Thank you, Miss Cece.
You want to head out there? And he says, no, it's probably just firecrackers or something.
At 12:10, the first call I received was from a young white woman, I would say in her late.
Now, back in 1960, 69, folks, Miss Nancy here was a telephone operator. They didn't have 911, what's your emergency and stuff like that. You dialed 0 on your rotary phone and said, I need the police. Such and such is happening and blah, blah, blah. And then they would connect through a connection board. There's a name for it. I can't think of it. As a phone board. And they would punch these things in and connect this to that and that to this and send you to the police department. Things have changed, folks, big time. So that's what this Miss Nancy here is.
Teens, 17, 16, 17, 18, somewhere around there.
That's it.
And
Pookie,
she
thank
was
you.
really
An operator.
agitated, excited, or whatever. And she reported that there were kids being shot at Blue Rock Springs.
Just a little quick piece of info for you guys. Back in the day, my instructor, when I went to school, I'm a retired firefighter for those of you that didn't know that. Most of you knew. Before firefighters were paid, they were all volunteer way back in the days. It was called a police switchboard. That's correct, Miss Brandy. Thank you. Yeah, Miss Sherry would probably know this too then. When a fire would happen, again, there was no 911. So what would happen was there was something called the fire phone. There was a phone in the chief's house, and every firefighter that was on the fire department had a police phone. And the operator, somebody would call in a fire to the operator, say, hey, actually what would happen was they would call the police. And the police would contact the operator and say, we need the fire department, or they would call the chief's house directly and say, hey, we got a fire at such and such and blah, blah, blah. And the chief would call everybody. And there was a siren on top, or a loud bell on top of the firehouse that would go off, and that would send a signal out to everybody in the area. And they would all take off to the fire station, load up, and off they went. And then they moved on to pagers and then to all the new digital crap that we have nowadays. So just another piece of useless information I found quite interesting. Oh, I doubt that, Sherry. I'm 48, so we're all in the same age group. But yeah, those were the days. And that's why it took so long back then for people to get to where they had to go. Anyway, sorry. I just thought that was interesting. Give you guys a little bit of history there.
Since I was driving, I kind of started meandering in that direction.
Yes, Miss Heather.
And a few minutes later, we got, I believe, another report, shots fired again at Blue Rock Springs. And the officer, I think it was Dick Hoffman, patrol officer, got there first and said he had a shooting, 2 people involved. So then, obviously, I put it in high gear and took off, and we got out there pretty quickly.
I was working.
Hello, M311 SSA. Thanks for joining us tonight. It's great to have you here.
It was a plainclothes assignment. Now, I had just been out to Blue Rock Springs a half hour or so before that, and checked the area and found it closed. My purpose out there was
Mike.
No teenagers hanging out, drinking, fighting.
Time and temperature. That's right, Sherry.
And there was no activity out there when I passed through a half hour or so ahead of that time.
Well, good golly, there's Miss
So
Molly, everybody.
Took the
Welcome, my
call,
dear.
and I
Thanks
gave
for
it to the
joining us.
dispatcher. And I remember her saying, I don't know who I'm going to send. I don't have anybody free.
And I wasn't far away, so I turned around and went back out there. Told dispatch that I was going to go out there to check on that report.
Hoffman was at the scene. We pulled in the parking lot, and I saw this, I think it was a 1963 light brown Corvair. Hit its headlights on.
That's
the
a real
passenger door
car.
was open, and there was
Corvair.
a male person laying on the ground. And Hoffman was ministering to him.
And I got up close and with my flashlight, I looked down there.
Oh, this is
There was
good.
a young guy down there laying on his back. Obviously.
1 second. What is his new account? Yeah, the time and temp thing was cool. What is he got hacked and he's got a new account. What is the new account? I'm sorry, hon, I did not know that. We've had to watch Midnight Drifter. I have not. 1 second, everybody. Midnight Drifter. We blocked it. Okay, I don't know. I didn't do it, but shoot. I wondered where he'd been. I'm sorry. I did not know. I haven't seen that account. Give me one moment, guys. I'm sorry. Tell him I'm sorry. I've wondered. We've missed him. I don't know who blocked it because I haven't even seen that come in here. Give me a minute. Jump right back into this. I'm sorry. Let me see here. Give me one moment. Oh Lord, there's so many people blocked in here. Drift under a name called Midnight Drifter. All right, ma'am. Tell him to try now. See what happens. All right. I think we're good. Well, with everything we've been messing around with lately, Molly, with, the trolls and stuff, there he is. What is up, Drift? Welcome back, brother. Good to see you. We've missed you. And let me see here. All right. Back in business. Got the family here. And let's get back to where we were, folks. Sorry about all that. It only took a minute, and we're good. Oh, okay. Well, yeah, you've been watching, I'm sure, but if you're in here and you're, for whatever reason, you were blocked, I don't know who blocked it. Either way, don't worry about it. Like I said, we've had some issues with trolls and stuff, so they've been being really careful with who's here and who's not. That's all. But anyway, it's good to see you, bro, and good to hear from you again. I've missed you. I wonder where Red is. I haven't seen Red in a while, too. All right, back to the show. All right.
They had been shot. He was reaching up towards me or the flashlight I was holding, kind of gurgling. From him, I looked over in the front seat of the car and saw a young girl sitting behind the steering wheel of the car. She'd been shot too. Blood all over the front in the car.
And I asked Kaufman, what you got here? And he says, I got the driver and the girl, she's been shot. And this guy, later identified as Michael Michaud, was laying on the ground, and he had just been shot to pieces. He had a bullet, I think, went through his neck and came out of his cheek. I got up and walked around to the driver's
Party lines,
wow. And the girl later identified as Darlene Farron. She had her eyes, slitted open a little bit, and I could see she was breathing. And I asked her if she could tell me what happened. And she kind of tried mumbling something. I got up real close, and
I think if anybody, Miss Heather might know that, Mike.
I checked her pulse, prodded artery pulse. I found nothing.
Not at all, Drift. We've just been being extra careful with new names that come in.
Out of the car. And one of the things I did when they lifted Michaud up, we had marked, and the Kaufman had outlined his body with a crayon. And so I was shining the light down there for whatever reason. I
Definitely
saw
not making anybody mad. You're part of family, brother.
Underneath where Michaud had been lying, and I picked it up, and it looked like a 9mm Parabellum bullet. They call it.
I thought it kind of strange. When they undressed that man, he was wearing a lot of clothes. He had several pairs of pants on and some sweaters, long sleeve shirt.
I might have to skip through some of this, folks, because there's a lot of it.
But I don't know why he was dressed so hot.
I was skinny. I'm still skinny, but back in 1969, I was so skinny that Seabirds went, so I was so thin.
I got you.
That I would see her meant to cover my thinness, and she knew it. But
Yeah.
she used to joke about, why are you mentioning my past? I'm thin.
I need to go to a
I
doctor.
found Darlene's purse in the
Sorry,
back
guys.
seat and got her identification out and her blood all over the seat. And then I walked around and Joe's wallet was up on, I think, the right rear fender of the
Now-
car. And I later learned that Hoffman had gotten it out and had laid it up there.
Remember that name down here in the future, that last Michael Majo and Darlene. Okay, those were two people that were attacked by Zodiac. Okay, remember that for in the future, guys. It's kind of important.
So I took that in the purse and those things were all put into evidence. When the ambulance left, we told Hoffman to ride in the ambulance and keep trying to get a statement.
Both of them were put in the ambulance, and I rode the ambulance with them to Kaiser Hospital in Vallejo.
Did you try talking to her?
There's no talking to her. I was there to record anything that would have been said, but I couldn't speak with her. She was. There was an ambulance attendant giving her CPR during the ride to the hospital, and of course her shirt or sweater, whatever she was wearing, was off. And each time that ambulance attendant blew air into her chest, there was a little piece of material from her bra that I could see fluttered with every breath he blew into that girl. This piece of material would flutter on the side. I could see that. I was no talking to that girl.
You knew her before the attack, right?
I never laid eyes on her.
You never laid eyes on her before?
No. I heard that she was a waitress at an all-night restaurant in Vallejo, but I didn't know the girl at all. Gray Smith wrote a book about the Zodiac, and he mentioned in his book that I was at Darlene and her husband's house on a house painting party prior to her death, and I don't know anything about that. It wasn't me, but that's what he says in his book.
Darlene was my girlfriend at the time, and I was dating her, and we were planning to get married. But she was already married, and everybody knew her husband worked at the restaurant as a cook. His name was Steve. Steve was a real nice guy, a good friend of mine, but he knew that we were dating. But she also dated my twin brother Steve. My identity twin brother Steve, she was dating him. And Steve had a big fight. Me and Steve had a big fight about that. Because I pretended I was Warren Beatty, the actor. And I told her, I'm Warren Beatty, the actor, and this is my brother. He just shot somebody. And she said, oh, that's cool. I'll take care of you guys. She did say that. Now, I told Steve, how about that? Yeah. So she, may long story short, it was started out as a joke. It's too bad she ended up losing her life behind it. Seriously, it's too bad she got murdered as a result of our meeting. I went to my house, and she picked me up at my house, and we were going to go out that night. We couldn't see each other the next day, so we decided to see each other that night after midnight, to have a lover's lane type thing, kiss and talk and hold each other's hands.
Is that what Blue Rock Springs was using?
Yeah, it was a lover's lane park for young people. I was 19 at the time.
Pookie, there was 5 that were clarified by police victim-wise. There were 5. But in one of the letters or the calls that Zodiac made to police, he claimed 37 victims. The guns that were listed, there was a Luger. They had said Luger. I'm sorry. They talk about a little bit of that here as we move along. But 37 was what he claimed. 5 over a period of 2 years is what police have proof of. Do you know what I mean? So I don't know. I'm going to venture to say what the secondary side of that with the 37 victims, or in that realm, because in that time San Francisco had so many unalivings going on, guys. It was, you can't tell. Now if you're going to go with the typical serial killer MO, it was kind of hard to stick with that because there were so many different unalivings that were alike. So there's that. But it's a good question, Pookie. Very good question.
57, but I was 19 at the time. She was 22. We were chased by this guy, from a restaurant. He was chasing us, and I told her to pull off at the park. And we chased me all night long at the restaurant, chased us to a coffee shop named Paul's or whatever it was called. And then he chased us all the way to the park, and then that's where I ended up in Blue Rock Springs Park. I thought he drove away, but he came back later on and shot us.
Michael Majo was the only one that was the two that was able to talk to us at all, and he he gave just a very brief description. He thought, I believe.
Now that guy there, Michael Majot, actually, they brought him in one day later on in the years later, as Mr. Greystone was working this case. They brought him in, and a gentleman had taken the case over because it had been going on for years, guys, and there was, bouts of time where there was no notes or no letters or no calls, no nothing going on, and they didn't know, what was going on with Zodiac. And they brought in Michael Majot, like I said, later on in the case, years later, and they had him do a picture lineup. And it had, one moment, folks. Sorry, guys. And right, Drifter. You're absolutely right, Drift. What was I saying? My granddaughter just ran through and just completely distracted me. Sorry. She's the sick dispenser. What the heck was I saying to you guys? Yeah, I need something. I really lost my train of thought, guys. I'm so sorry. And what I was telling you, it was kind of important. I wanted to tell you. I hate when this happens, guys. I got so much running through my head right now. Somebody hint to me what I was talking about real quick, please, so I can catch back up with myself. Thank you, Mrs. M, so much. This is why I love you guys. So, yeah, they brought Michael Majot in, and they put down a picture lineup. This was, like I said, years and years later. Okay? Thank you, guys. Sorry about that. And they said, do you see the man that shot you July 4th, 1969? And he looks down literally for a matter of minutes. And there was at the bottom row, there was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 pictures. Right in the middle was, he looked at it. Well, they depicted this in the movie, but they had said when I read it, that it was the way it happened. But he looks down, and he looks down for just a matter of seconds, and he points to Arthur Lee Allen. And then he points to a picture next to it and said his face was more rounded like that one. And the officer said, so what you're saying is that it could be him or it's somebody else? He goes, no. I'm positive. I know that it was him. And he pointed out Arthur Lee Allen. And he said, all I was saying was that his face was more round, which means that at that time, Allen was chubbier, basically. So very interesting. Just so you guys know, Vanilla Casper. That's me. Moving on.
He told Hoffman he thought it was a car like Darlene. It was Darlene Ferrent's car, the Corvair, and he said he thought a car pulled up a few feet away from them, just a couple of minutes before the shooting. Wasn't sure if it was the same car.
It was like a brown Renault car, small combat car, but it could have been a Cadillac too. I'm not really sure. I can't really remember.
He said his car pulled up, and
a small compact car, but it could have been a Cadillac too. I don't really remember. The guy seems like he's drunk at that point, but yeah. Right, Drift. That's exactly what it was, basically. Old remedy from out on the farm. Pour boiling water into a big bowl, add 1 cup of salt, put a towel over your head, and breathe. Do for at least 15 minutes. Do you have Vicks on your chest and feet? I do not have any Vicks, Spooky. I don't have any of that stuff. Sorry. I wish I did. I could really use it right now. Ford Pinto, right? But yeah, That was kind of interesting, I thought.
He asked Darlene, "Do you know who that is?" And she said something like, "Never mind."
She told me it was a friend of hers and not to worry about it. He was just jealous. That's all she said about it. He was just jealous. She never mentioned his name. She said, "Oh, Richard." His name was Richard. I get his name Richard. And I think that was his name. She referred to him as Richard, the Zodiac killer guy. She said, really, I mean, temper, and that if he ever found out, he would kill her. He would kill her. That's she mentioned. She said those words. He would kill me if he ever knew I was talking to you about that. She told me that.
And then the car left. And just very shortly after that, this car pulled up behind their car with the headlights on, and he thought that he was able to get out of the car and fell down on the ground. And as he lay on the ground, he saw the assailant's car drive away back toward the city of Vallejo.
That should be
at a high
okay.
rate of
Sorry, guys.
speed.
He drove off quietly. He didn't feel like he drove real quietly. In his car, quietly drove off. You barely hear the engine, he drove off.
I believe he said that it looked like it might have been the same car that pulled up, next to them just a few minutes before the actual shooting, but I can't be positive about that.
We thought he just left and he wasn't going to bother us anymore, but he came back and got out of his car and had a blinding light. Then he had a big beamer just blinded my eyes, right in my eyes. I thought it was a police with a flashlight, but it wasn't a police, it was him, the Zodiac killer. I thought it was a policeman. That's why I wrote it in the window. Well, I wrote it on the window. So I could have my ID, and that's when he started shooting. Now he thought he hit me, but I looked down, I saw blood squirting out of my mouth. I knew I had been shot. I was asking the policeman, "Why'd you hit me?" And I realized I had been shot. It wasn't a policeman. That's the first time I realized it wasn't a policeman. It was a killer. I got shot 5 times. Shot in the face, went through my right ear, went through my tongue and my jaw, and came out here and went into her.
Wow.
Went into her and killed her. And shoulder, elbow, my
Couldn't
side,
tell you, Drift.
and twice my left leg. Well, it lasted a long time because he shot me and shot me and shot me and shot me and shot me. It took forever, man, for me. It might have been a silencer. Might have had a silencer, but I don't know. I didn't hear a big bang like a gun, 9mm make. But I heard a snapping sound like a firecracker. So I think to me, I thought he had a silencer because I didn't hear him. I could hear it, but it wasn't a loud booming bang. It was just it was like a pop and a crack. Like pow, 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 crack, crack, crack. That's what a shot sounded like, crack, like a firecracker gun or a BB gun,
When we got there, the headlights and taillights were on. I believe the radio, the ignition was turned to the accessory position, and the radio was on and playing low.
I do believe it was Drift.
That, Michael thinks that Darlene flashed the lights on and off the headlights, trying to attract attention. He says he's not sure if he asked her to do that or she did it on her own, but because he said when Michael told me later when they pulled into the parking lot, she turned the lights off but had the radio on. And apparently if she was flashing the lights for attention, she ended up leaving the headlights on because they were on when we got there. But Michael told me that when they pulled in, she turned the headlights off.
When he came up and shot me, I did have an idea what he looked like. He looked like a tall white guy, about 6 feet tall, jet black hair, curly hair, and he looked like an average looking person, but he wasn't ugly, he wasn't handsome, just average, nondescript guy, a plain guy. But he had tall, dark, he may have worn glasses like yours, mine, reading glasses. He may have had glasses. I recall he did have glasses on, as I recall. He did have glasses. I remember that. He definitely had glasses on. The gunshot flew in the backseat of the car. I was upside down, my left leg was around my shoulder, my arm was around. I was taking myself my own arm. I opened the back door to get out. I fell out of the ground. She was already dead.
So how long was it before the police showed up?
About 9 hours. Literally, the time I was shot, I was in the blood for like 4 hours. I was on the ground for 4 hours. July 4th, 1969, everybody was having fun and games. People came by and saw me there, wouldn't call the cops. I just did it for 4 hours. People were like, I was like, "You all right, mister?" No, I'm not all right. They just ran. They ran screaming. But yeah, it was a horrible night for me. It was.
I bet it was.
Because she died, it wasn't just me. I knew she was dead. Well, I was going to marry her. I was really going to marry her, so I took it really hard that she died.
Of course.
Because I felt like I should have saved her. 'Cause I was there to protect her. I couldn't protect her.
No, it's not his fault.
I always regret the fact that she got killed. I always feel partly responsible for it. Physically, I'm fine. Physically, I'm fine. I feel fine. But mentally, the scars of emotion, the scars are still there. I feel really good if you go, Scott. I feel really good. Put that guy in death row or something. It just made me feel closure with that. I feel better because they solved the murder case against Darlene, who was a nice, innocent, good person, innocent victim of circumstance. Some people put her down and say she was a whore. Well, she wasn't. She was a very nice human being, and I did love her, and I still love her. I always love her. She got murdered needlessly. She was 22 years old. I was 19. I had a long, good life after that shooting, but she got killed that day. I can't forget that. The black mark on my life. I like to close over her case and her family who suffered.
It is. This is very sad. I know. It's very hard to
I see the
watch.
color. She had blue eyes. Her eyes were, partially open, but I could tell she was breathing, and she responded to me when I asked her, "Can you tell me what happened?" She was trying to say something, but she was just so gone at that time that just I got my ear right up next to her mouth, and just nothing. I couldn't make anything out. After the shooting at Blue Rock Springs Park, the Zodiac, the shooter, apparently drove back into Vallejo and drove down a street called Tuolumne Street. And there's at that time, there was a Union 76 gas station that was closed at the time. There's a public phone booth there, and he called the Vallejo Police Department and claimed responsibility.
Then the next call I got was about 12:40. And that's the call that I received from the man who was subsequently called Zodiac. He spoke in a monotone. It's like he had rehearsed it or was reading what he was saying. He had a very non-emotional voice.
I wasn't
His
sure.
first words were.
There's a whole story behind this drift.
If you'll go,
and it came out that Mr. Greystone figured out that
on Columbus Parkway
there's a little bit of a conspiracy behind the Darlene side of it, and we'll get into that. It'll get into that a little bit here. It's interesting too.
Public park, and I said, "Yes, sir. We have a report of a shooting in that area. I still need to get your name and your location." And he said, "You'll find the kids in a brown car. They were shot with a 9mm Luger, and I also killed those kids last year." I got a very taunting, scary type
exactly drift
from the call. And when he got to the end of his statement, it's hard for me to duplicate, but instead of just saying, if you read my report, it means nothing. But if you hear, if you would have heard, I can't explain it as well as I still hear it. It was from somebody who was really out there.
Yeah, right.
But his voice really changed when he came to goodbye. And it wasn't just goodbye. Now it may sound a little silly to people. It didn't to me at the time. But he said something like, "Goodbye." And he hangs up. And I'm just kind of sitting there thinking, oh my God.
We went up there and just kind of on an impulse. I think there was a car at the first turnout from the south end of the lake going north. And the second one or the third one was open. I just turned in and I said, "Let's go down, walk down by the lakeside." We did. It was about probably a couple hundred yards down to the edge of the lake. Because this particular turnout, it wasn't necessarily just going down to the shoreline. It was actually out on a peninsula. And the peninsula during the wintertime would be an island when the water was higher. And there were about 3 live oak trees out on the peninsula. And we laid down a blanket and we're chatting. I ran into Cecilia in the at the cafeteria.
What's up,
It's a
PPR?
fairly small school on campus. Most of the meals are taken on campus. And I ran into her probably.
It's a great movie. It really is, Drift. I like Jake Gyllenhaal in that. I liked everybody that
we
was
were
in the
still good
movie.
friends. We dated a couple years before, and Pacific Union College, and we decided to go into San Francisco. We've been in there many times, and when we went to school there together, she was going, I think, to UC Riverside at the time. It was just coming out to visit friends. So we went down to St. Helena, and I think we looked in a rummage sale or something. We got distracted. We didn't make it all the way out of town. And then when we looked at the clock, it was clear that we were not going to make it to the city and back. I had some
Welcome, Jen.
that evening that I had to be back
Good to
for.
see you.
So we decided instead to take
Sorry,
the
I'm a
loop
little
up
late
to Lake
with that.
There's a lot of activity up in Berryessa during the summer months, but after Labor Day, when all the kids go back to school, it kind of quiets down. And this was September 27th, probably 3.5 weeks after Labor Day. So it was a very, very quiet Saturday evening up there. The weather was nice. Napa's kind of a secluded community. We're bordered on both sides by major highways, Highway 80 to our east and Highway 101 to our west. And so we don't get a lot of the traffic coming through Napa.
I agree, Drift.
So we have a relatively low crime rate. We can sometimes go several years without a homicide. I think that particular year we had 5 or 6, which is unusual.
It was a Saturday, late in the afternoon, around 6:15. I was on patrol. The dispatcher notified me by radio that he had received a report of double stabbing at Lake Berryessa, and I was to respond. So I notified my partner, who was Deputy Ray Land, at the time was in St. Helena. I was in Napa on the northeast side of town. We both began to proceed to Lake Berryessa.
The shoreline at that spot was a little on the steep side, so that I could lay on my back and pretty much see out across the lake. She was laying somewhat diagonally with her hands on my chest, and we were probably about 12 inches our faces apart, and we were talking. And I noticed that she was becoming distracted. She said, "There's a man over there." And I assumed, since we're out on the peninsula and there was a spit of water between where we were and the next area over, it's kind of hard to describe. With a reservoir, you have more peninsulas and irregular shoreline because
we all agree with you, David. It just doesn't work that way, sadly.
Where a lake, if it's been there a long time, it's pretty much rounded around the edge. This wasn't that old a reservoir, and so as a consequence, you had a very irregular shoreline. And we're at one area, then there was water in between, then there was another area, another place where people could go. And I thought they were on the other side of the water.
And everybody who's not a tree, we clear out this way?
Yeah, that's a tree, that's a tree, that's a tree. And that's the one he probably was behind. We're a little closer, but remember we talked about the fact that this is all eroded. So that was the closest tree. There was a tree there. That puts me...
Thank you, Heather.
Probably about in here, okay? And I'm facing this way, laying on my back. And Cecilia is on her stomach facing this way, actually facing kind of like this. So her head's facing that way. And we're talking. And when she says, "I see a man over there," what I'm thinking is, if you look to the left of her, you can see those trees on that hill. That would be another picnic area. So
no worries,
seeing someone on that hill, would be of interest, but not.
No worries, brother. You're part of the family already. It doesn't matter.
Some cause of concern.
You know that.
And so I'm continuing to talk, and then she says, "He went behind a tree." And so
were you in here earlier when we covered the Nicola Bully case, Drift?
Trees over there.
What we were talking about earlier.
So then when she says, "Oh, he's got a gun," he's walking this direction, and I turn around, and from there to here, he's probably made it to about here. So we're about half the distance between the tree and me. And so that was my first running into him. It was really somewhat of a surprise that he was that close, because again, I was looking at the other area. I'll tell you another thing that probably made me think that it was somebody over there. It wasn't an improved park site. There wasn't regular established bathrooms. So if you had to use the restroom, you just kind of get out of eye shot of whoever you were with, or go behind a tree or something like that. So when she says he went behind a tree, that actually validated what I thought was happening on the 1,000 feet away, that someone was actually relieving themselves behind a tree.
I got you, Midnight. Or Drift, I mean.
She still wasn't paying attention. which to me
Still gonna
was
call
kind
you
of
Drift,
distracting,
bro.
doing whatever they're doing. And then her eyes got wide and she says, "Oh my God, he's got." And I turn around and I'm faced with this man, not running, but walking briskly toward me, with a gun in his hand, wearing a hood, black hood. It comes down in the front, across his chest and back up, like an overlay or a dicky. I'm assuming it was on the back as well, although I don't remember seeing it on the back. And on the front was about a 4-inch across circle with crosshairs, and it looked like it was made with a machine or with some degree of care. It wasn't just scrawled on with white paint. It was proportional. But you know, at the time, it really didn't strike me because it was just something that a person was putting over themselves so that they wouldn't be seen. I mean, it could have come from a costume shop or a novelty store. The symbolism on it really didn't mean anything. He didn't identify himself as being a Zodiac. In fact, as soon as I get up, he goes, "Okay, hold on, everybody. Nothing to be afraid of. All I want is your money, and I need your car. If everybody stays cool, nobody's going to get hurt." And I believed him.
The only thing to me, this came out since then, but he told me at that time that he had killed a guard getting out of prison, and so I did take him as a killer. To me, a killer isn't a normal person, so I assumed at the time that something was wrong. But as far as a psychopath or any other aberration, I really didn't realize at the moment. I wasn't concerned because I was cooperating with him, and I expected that he would cooperate with me. And I tried to be as accommodating under the circumstances as possible to save the girl, any harm. He wanted our money. And I actually laughed at the moment because I told him, I said, "I've only got 75 cents in my pocket." And I said, "You're welcome to have it. But if you need help, I'm sure I'll give you help otherwise." And I asked him what his problem was. And he mentioned that he was a convict trying to get to Mexico and needed money and transportation. And I offered him assistance. I told him what I was doing in school and that if I could be of any assistance whatsoever, I'll pay my phone number, anything like this. And this just isn't what he wanted. He said he wanted money. And I was really sorry. I said, "We got to check. I'd really like to help you if you'd be willing to accept help." He said, "Well, what I need right now is to get you tied up."
He pulled from some cuts of 3-foot lengths of clothesline. It's actually plastic. It's the kind that's hollow in the center. And he handed those to Cecilia and asked her to tie me up.
Of course, she was real nervous and tied me rather loosely. And he came and he tightened the knots up, and then he tied her up. And we continued the dialogue along most of this time.
I'm trying to engage him in conversation the whole time. Where you been? What's where you
Carmen
headed?
Gia. I'd love to get my hands on one of those nowadays.
I was taking a sociology class, and I thought I might be able to squeeze a paper out of it.
Right.
While she was
I
tying
agree
me
with
up,
that, Drift.
I mentioned to her that I thought that I could get the gun, that if I was just to move a little bit closer, I could reach over and get
Too
it.
comfortable,
And she
David.
said, "Oh, no, don't try anything." Well,
And
he stepped back about 2 or 3 feet from that, and I never really had an opportunity.
I'll tell you something
again.
else,
You know, the
folks.
odds are, if someone's...
As much as I've followed this, no problem, Heather. Take your time, hon. I followed this for years too because it was very interesting to me. I've always been involved and interested in these types of cases and stuff, guys. And David made a comment earlier when I was advertising about tonight, and I have agreed with him, even with this Arthur gentleman and the other gentleman that's been named. But I really feel, for whatever reasons, and I have felt like it for years, that the true Zodiac killer was very, very possibly a police officer, folks. Very possibly. And that's something that's been in the back of my mind about this case for years. It's one of them things I just can't let go of. And just something else to think about. And that's why I was putting it out there. Arthur Lee Allen, that's correct. Which Arthur Lee Allen was not a police officer. But to me, there's just something about this that gives me that feel, kind of like Golden State, you know? It just, I don't know what it is, guys. And David mentioned that earlier. I felt the same way. So just something to think about.
robbing you, you should cooperate and don't try anything heroics because you stand a much greater chance of having harm occur. And I felt if I was going to change the odds, I probably at least ought to ask her. And obviously she declined, and I never had the opportunity again. As soon as we were tied, he then said he wanted me to get down and lay on my stomach so that he could tie my feet. And I kind of fussed with him a bit, and I said, you know, it was really cold in the evenings, which really wasn't so much cold. It was just the inconvenience of being stuck out all night. And
that I don't know, Drift.
And he put the gun.
It's a good point, though. It really is.
With our feet, then our feet to our hands, so we were essentially hog-tied. And I got the impression we were kind of getting near the end. I mean, there wasn't anything much more he could do. He was going to
makes a lot of sense, too.
Take whatever money I had there. And I kind of looked around and I said, "Can you do me a favor? Tell me, was the gun really loaded? I don't know where I'd read it, but I'd read it someplace that people that do robberies didn't want to ever be convicted of shooting somebody, so that on many occasions they would leave the gun unloaded, so if something happened, they wouldn't shoot somebody, and their penalty if they were caught was less. I know that sounds preposterous in this day and age because, I mean, everybody has loaded guns, but that's what I had read, and I asked him, I said, is the gun really loaded? He pulls the gun and pulls out the clip and shows me a full clip, puts it back, sticks it in his holster. And I'm thinking, okay, that's interesting. And I put my head down because it's like he put the gun away. He's going to leave now. Obviously, we couldn't do anything. We're tied up, and I'm obviously not going to be making any moves. And I'm just kind of trying to collect my thoughts. What are we going to do? How am I going to get out of this? Figuring out what options we had. And I saw just the kind of a flash out of the corner of my eye. He pulls the knife, and the next thing I know is I feel it in my back. He stabbed me, I think, 6 times, and they were fairly quick succession. The difference, of course, with Cecilia is she saw what was happening. She saw what was happening then, and I'm sure she must have known what was going to happen to her. So she's saying, stop, stop. She's trying to roll away. She's petrified, obviously. I mean, she was scared to begin with, and then when she saw this, she knew that what was going to happen.
I got you, David. Thank you, my
when
friend.
When he goes to stab her, she's moving.
As always,
I'm basically a stationary person. He has a place to stab, and he's doing it with her. She's rolling away, and to be perfectly frank, if what they've captured on the film that you see when Cecilia is being stabbed, that's and I never had anything to do with the scene, but that's the flash I saw happening, and I had to look away. And about the time you would look away, that's when that piece ends in the film. It's an eerie reproduction of what happened in my vision. I couldn't have scripted it better, because it was that was happening, and I remember saying, she's gonna die. I put my head back. I just could not look any further. Now, when I put my head back, it flashed upon me that if I'm moving around, he's going to come back and finish me off. So I froze, quit breathing. I swear I could have stopped breathing for 10 minutes. But pretty soon she lost consciousness, or he felt he'd done an adequate job to kill her. And I sensed that he was standing there looking, and then he just walked off.
I've thought about this too over the years. I would love to get a psychological buildup off this guy as far as a profiler would give him. You know what I mean? I mean, there's something, the way that he performed the crimes, it was just...
It's starting to get real dark around me. It's kind of like
as with most,
anesthetic, I suppose. You're just all of a sudden...
I'd love to get in their heads, guys. I really would. That's the thing that mesmerizes
probably like
me
an electric motor.
And brings me to...
It doesn't turn off right away. There's a flywheel.
Want to know about these cases so
slow
much,
down.
It's how these killers think and why.
And then just before it was
Brian
like
Koberger,
it kind of leveled off. And I mean,
this guy, Richard Ramirez,
you don't hit the ground.
Ed Gein, all of them.
Maybe I've got a shot here.
It'd be nice if we could get in
I started
and
talking
just watch
to her,
a video of their brain and their
she was in a lot
mind
of
as
pain.
it's rolling. You know what I mean?
Crying.
And I agree on that one too, Drift.
Really upset.
That was
obviously.
a big deal with this case. The handwriting.
I was able to, with my teeth, enough to. But her hands were. It was so tight that her hands were so numb. I asked her if she could get mine undone, and she couldn't move them, and she really wasn't in any position to move. I mean, she was pretty badly injured.
I was able to untie one of her hands, but she was too weak to untie me at that time. So I scooted into a position where I could be looking out across the lake. And after calling several times, I found one position that had a little more echo to it that I thought was a little louder. And I called, and several boats went by, but they didn't stop. I don't know if they thought we were joking or what. But finally, one fisherman who was going real slow, he stopped. He shut off his motor, and we cajoled and called, and we did everything to try to get him to come.
If I recall correctly, there was an island about maybe 50 yards off the edge, probably not even that. The island was sort of close, and the little boat went in between. And I got its attention, screaming and hollering at him, turned off the engine.
Yeah, I know.
And look,
I know,
it
David.
seemed like forever.
I know.
Begging him to come over and help us.
That's the sad part about the whole thing. It's a fact.
I could see 2 figures in the boat. He turned the engine on and went down the lake. And we're sunk. I don't know what we're going to do.
I'll be right back, folks. I got to refill my cup. Keep on listening.
About that time, I felt hands at my back, and she'd gotten enough strength and enough energy in her hands that she was able to get one knot loose enough that I was able to, then with my own hands and working it, be able to get my hands free. I untied her legs and my legs and feet, start to get some circulation back in it. And after a little bit, I thought, I'm gonna way around this. I'm gonna have to make it back up to the road. So I got up and I made it about 5 feet, and the sparkles and the darkness came back, and I had to drop down immediately to keep from passing out. I'd lost too much blood. I had no energy to move. So I waited a minute, got some more strength, and I thought, okay, I'm gonna have to do this a little slower. And I made it another 5 feet and dropped down myself. So I just started taking 5-10 feet intervals, and I found that if I wasn't really trying to walk fast, if I would bend over and hold my hands around my chest and kind of walk, bend over, and walk slower, I could make more distance between having to stop and rest. I made it about halfway to the road. There was a little kind of a utility dirt trail, road, what have you, that the Forest Service must have used for their patrols. And I saw some lights coming. And so I stopped in the road and kind of on my hands and knees, I was waving at them. The vehicle stopped, and I saw somebody get out of the truck that was wearing a heavy jacket and a flashlight. I couldn't see the face. And I thought, oh no, he's come back. Well, then he turned slightly when he came around as far as the lights, and I could see that he had some type of an official emblem on the side, and he'd come to help us. Apparently, the fishermen, knowing that there was a ranger station up the way, had gone up and alerted them, and then they came to find us.
Here I am.
The most remarkable thing in my mind about this is how Brian Hartnell fought to stay awake and fought.
Oh yeah, for
to
sure.
keep his consciousness, and fought to.
I agree, David.
Get help for Cecilia. More than
that is a fact. Bundy did try to blame pornography for what he did, and I don't. That has nothing to do with it, in my opinion. That's just an excuse. I'm sorry. True facts, David. True facts.
So that must have been that was a heck of an ordeal crawling up to that road, and I just admire the guy.
Deputy Land and myself arrived at just about the same time. It took us a half hour from Napa and/or St. Helena to arrive at the location. And we later found out, of course, that the whole crime at least a half hour before we were notified. So we feel that a good hour has gone by. The road
agree,
that we traveled over to get to this location is a very mountainous, curving, 2-lane road with a lot of blind curves. And so driving in an emergency, it was very difficult to get there any faster than we did. It took me 30 minutes from the intersection of Vichy and Monticello Road in Napa. And I figure with the timing that we have discovered that the Zodiac came down the road and passed me at some point going into the city of Napa to make his boastful phone call.
At that time, I was a police officer assigned to the patrol division. What we did, because we were a small department, when the dispatcher, we had a 1-person dispatch, when they went on their lunch break, the rookie cop got to go in and fill in as the relief dispatcher. On this particular night, that's what happened. I was out on patrol, went in to relieve the dispatcher for her lunch break, and it was during the time period that I was filling in for her that the call came into the police department. Our switchboard was the old cord type that you plug in when a call comes in. The phone rang, and I recall saying, Officer Slate, Napa Police Department. There was a male voice on the other end of the phone, and he said, I want to report a murder. No, a double murder. They're 2 miles north of park headquarters, and they were in a white.
What's up, Star? Good to see you again.
My first thought was the ranger that had found these young people had stopped them and said, I can't get out on my radio. Would you get to a phone and call and let someone know that what's going on? So my impulse was to find out where he was so we could get someone to him to talk to. I asked, where are you now? At that point, he said very calmly,
David,
I'm the one that did it.
He had a very precise cadence to his voice, not an accent, but slow and measured. All I want your money had a real distinctive tone about it, which I told the police then that if I ever heard it again, I would be able to recognize it. I haven't heard it again, but it had a very unique sound.
And all of a sudden, I heard a clatter. Didn't exactly understand what it was. And what he had done apparently is just dropped the phone from his hand and let it dangle. We learned later that it was a phone booth. As I sat there with the open phone, I could hear voices in the background, and so at that point, I called the sheriff's
Lena,
office on
Lena,
another
what's
line,
up,
kept
sis?
one line open, told the sheriff's
Thanks for
office
joining
what
us
just happened,
tonight, dear. So
called
great
the
to see
operator,
you.
asked if we could trace where this phone call had come from.
I believe it was about 8:30 in the evening when I was at the Queen of the Valley Hospital, maybe right after I'd left there, that the police department had called the sheriff's office and said that they received a phone call from an unknown individual.
The sheriff's office had broadcast, I possibly had broadcast, I'm not absolutely positive, that this person had left the phone off the hook. As it turned out, one of the local reporters for the newspaper had heard this broadcast on his scanner, and so he started driving around the city of Napa to see if he could find a phone, and he was the one that actually saw the phone. He then was yelling, "Can you hear me? Can you hear me?" And I could hear the voice, and that's how we located the phone. The operator had not gotten back to us with the location of the phone at that time.
Of course, I immediately called for an ID man to go to the phone booth and preserve whatever evidence was possible. And he spent quite a few hours there and recovered literally dozens and dozens of fingerprints that have not been identified to this day. Some of them were so fresh that he had to artificially dry them so that he could lift the print because it was too moist.
When we arrived at the scene, Cecilia Shepard was in a fetal position on the ground at the base of an oak tree. She was laying on a blanket and had been wrapped in a blanket. I immediately went to her to see if I could administer first aid or do something to help her. She was crying, and she told me she was so cold that she was having a hard time talking. So I asked Ranger White to please go to the patrol car, get my uniform jacket and bring it down, which he did. And while we were putting the jacket onto her, I could see multiple areas on her clothing, front and back, where she had been stabbed. The blood was showing through the clothing. She said, "Brian and I, we're here on the blanket. We're down by the water, and we're just enjoying the afternoon. We're having a nice time talking." And I saw this guy. He was coming down the hillside, and he seemed to stop and watch us. He's looking at us. And I said, "Well, what distance? How far away was he?" And she pointed to an area, and I said, "That's about, looks like 200 to 300 yards away." She said, "That's where I first saw him." And then as we continued enjoying the afternoon and watching the water and reading, I would glance and I noticed he'd get closer and he was closer. And then pretty soon he was within 75 to 100 feet away. And I told Brian, I said, "That guy has come down here." And then she looked again and she said, "He was gone." And I said, "Well, where did he go?" She said, "He stepped behind a tree." And when he's in the tree was 50 to 75 feet away. And when he stepped out, he was pulling a hood over his head. And I said, "A hood?" She said, "Yes." And that was the first that we had known that we had something.
And that's what I was talking about earlier, Drift, is that the MO,
is if you're going to kill
that's
somebody,
something
you
that's
don't wear a
always
mask.
bugged me with him, is his MO. Typically, a killer will use either one or the other, not both, okay? It's very weird. I mean, I know he had them both, all the time, but it's just weird that it's just a weird thing to me. Something with his MO is just off to me.
You got it in your own mind you're going to kill him, so why do you have to hide your identity? So that's always been a puzzling matter in this case. Why did the Zodiac go through such a effort to make this mask to horrify people if he knew he was going to kill him?
And I asked her if she saw him clearly before he put the hood on. She said, "Yes, I did." And I said, "Well, what did he look like?" And she said, "Well, I said, "What color was his hair?" She said, "Well, it was brown." And what race was he? He was white. And I said, "Well, how about his eyes? Could you see the color of his eyes?" And she said, "No, he had dark glasses on underneath the hood." But she said his hair hung down across his forehead and was showing through the eye holes. I said, "Well, how tall? Let me stand where he was when he came up to you and look at me. I'm 5'10". Tell me how he matches my height," because she was laying on the ground. She said, "Well, he's just a little bit taller than you, probably an inch or two taller than you." I said, "Okay, how much did he weigh?" She said he was overweight. He was bulky looking. His clothing was all dark pants, dark shirt, dark jacket, and the jacket was bulky. And I said, "Well, I'm 170. Look at me and judge by my weight and see what you can tell." She said, "Well, he'd have to be at least 20 or 30 pounds heavier." The information that I'm relaying to you now is information that I got directly from Cecilia Shepard. It is accurate for what she told me because I kept notes, and I immediately did a report the following morning so that nothing would be lost. And if things have changed in the course of the investigation, I can't comment on it because I can only report what she told me, and that is what I've just relayed.
Why doesn't anybody know that she saw his face? Why is that unknown?
I didn't report it.
Why didn't you report it?
Right.
At the time, I didn't.
And
think it
that
was
says
important.
something by itself, transporter.
It wasn't until Monday. around noon,
It's got
I
a
believe, that I was
different
notified that
meaning
Cecilia Shepard had died of her
because
wounds.
it was a
And
random
then, of course, there was
scenario.
no
You know what I
longer a
mean?
felonious assault. It became a homicide.
This whole thing took place in about a 20-minute time
Yes,
period.
David, I
From the
do
time
believe
I
that they
arrived
have.
until the ambulance arrived, it's about 20 minutes.
To be honest with you, at one point, David, the lead investigator on this case for a long period of time, it was Detective David Tochi, was actually under scrutiny and being investigated for writing one of the Zodiac letters. They thought he was the Zodiac at one point. He was looked at for quite a while. Eventually, he was cleared of all charges because it obviously wasn't him. But so yeah, they did definitely look at him at one point in time, which was quite interesting to say the least. Good question. Definitely a good question, sir.
And this is the time that I get all this information.
So your assignment was to go to the hospital?
Go to the hospital and try to get statements from the victims.
Right.
I talked to the doctor.
Right.
And
I
he
agree
told
on
me
that one.
there's no way that I could talk to
Drift.
the
Thank you
female
again, Ms.
victim,
Heather. Anybody
Cecilia
interested in
Shepard.
donating to support the channel,
Two victims
or me
journeys,
myself?
and,
There's a
tried
link for
to
PayPal, Cash App, and
interview
Venmo,
him, get
and
some
I
idea
thank you
what
so
had
very
taken
much,
place,
folks.
But the girl was already in a coma. We were unable to talk to Cecilia Shepard, the female victim. But Brian Hartnell was in quite a bit of agony, and he was answering questions in short bursts, so to speak. And then the doctor finally said, "We have to take him into emergency, so you'll have to conclude this interview." We went up there that night to process the crime scene. It was about midnight when we got up there. We had several deputies on the scene. I interviewed the officers that was there. One was a park ranger by the name of Dennis Land, and the other one was a park ranger by the name of William White, Bill White, Sergeant. And at that time, Bill White turned over to me some of the articles that were found at the crime scene. Didn't really make me too happy at the time because I couldn't actually go to the crime scene because someone, thinking they were doing the good thing and the right thing by protecting it, actually bundled up the blanket and the clothing and stuff that was there and took it into his custody at the various Lake Park headquarters. He thought at the time he was doing a very good thing, but at the same time, it took us away from the opportunity to actually view the crime scene. So, put in a few simple words, there wasn't really a crime scene to view.
After the ambulance took the victims to the hospital in Napa, and while waiting for detectives from the sheriff's department to arrive, Deputy Land talked to the witnesses that were there and obtained statements from them. I began a search for evidence and discovered a footprint that led from Berrios and Knoxville Road to the victims and back again, which was totally separate from the shoes that they were wearing.
Later on, we were able to determine that it was a military type shoe. And as a matter of fact, we were able to come up with an identical shoe, an identical footprint in the same size. And it was determined to be what was referred to as a wing walker shoe that was used primarily with the Navy and the Air Force in maintenance due to the static free sole in the shoe. So the maintenance people could walk around the wings of aircraft without creating static electricity. So we thought that was a very crucial piece of evidence.
When I went to the roadway, I saw the white Karmann Ghia, and I saw tracks leading away from it, which we felt may have been tire tracks from the Zodiac's vehicle.
There's that vehicle there,
Tires were different, which is unusual. Most people buy a set of tires, or at least
gotta give anything to have that right now.
They were distinctively different on the front of this vehicle.
You know how much that car's probably worth?
I believe it was an older model car.
Not that one specific, but one of those.
The maintenance on the vehicle.
I looked at the Karmann Ghia, and on the passenger door, the circle with the vertical and horizontal line running through it was displayed on the door.
There it
And there were
is.
several dates, and then it ended with
I know.
September
Drift is all
27th,
about this, Heather.
1969, 6:30 p.m. by knife, which was our crime. And so he had left his calling card.
I should have let you leave the show, Drift.
I recognized the symbol on the door as being the same symbol she had described on the hood.
Critical piece of evidence.
Right, David, right. These are nice cars.
Yeah, that's before the days of the
From easy 250,000.
That's Sharpie. That's pre-Sharpie days.
This must be, is this permanent marker or is it?
Pretty thin point.
Beautiful car, by the way.
The circles being filled in on the time. If you could hurt it, you wouldn't do that. I wouldn't put it on until they were in the jail. I wouldn't come back. I'd go and take the time.
He was insane.
I got you. I got you, Drift.
Telling us how far something is, how long it's been.
Listen, I'll be the first to say it. If you're into true crime at all, this case is probably one of the biggest ones that true crimers are into.
And there's just no connection. You basically got these 4 plus 9.
That's right.
Then stop. Which was kind of cool, actually. I was no fan of reading the paper for another one.
That's one of the questions always is, why did he stop?
This has always been known as a city of mystery, and it seems now to have a new and real one on its hands. 5 murders, and somebody who says he committed all and will commit yet more.
What goes on in San Francisco for the man known as the Zodiac killer? The element involved today.
Zodiac, a symbol that now stands for terror in San Francisco. Today there was a possibly significant development in the terrifying case of a man who calls himself Zodiac. The psychotic killer has already murdered 5. 1 at a lover's lane near a lake just north of San Francisco. 3 others in nearby Vallejo. The latest, a taxi driver in San Francisco.
Damn right, Brandy. I'll have Jeff come up here and help me run a shoe one day.
Responded on the scene.
Something else you might know about. We'll find one.
Frank Peda, an excellent police officer. And we responded to a radio call, told us that a cab driver was being robbed and or possibly assaulted.
I got you, David.
At the corner of Cherry and Washington Streets in Pacific Heights.
Yeah, BWs were nice.
We fortunately were very close and responded to that corner. And we're able to do so red light and siren at 9:55 at night and got there very quickly. I parked the car in the middle of the intersection facing a yellow cab that was sitting a little bit back from the corner of Cherry Street on Washington, facing west on Washington. There were 3 children that were heading over to that car. They weren't too far away, but I'd say a good 15 or 16 feet away. I made the assumption they were coming from the home on the corner, and I was correct, and I herded them immediately back to that alcove. I didn't know if the suspect was still there. The description that came out over the air was of an NMA, Negro male adult at the time. The only person that could have given that information would have been the child who called it into police dispatch. Whether somebody wrote it incorrectly and the child actually said white guy, I don't know.
My regular partner was off. I don't recall the reason why he was not working that night. However, Eric Zelms was assigned as my partner that night. We were patrolling the eastern side of the Richmond district, going northbound on Presidio Avenue. We had passed Washington Street when a broadcast came in of a shooting at Cherry and Washington
David has a sexy
When I was in the
Australian
cab,
voice.
I could
That's
see
a
Mr.
fact,
Paul
Miss Brandy.
Stein, who was slumped over the front seat with his head into the well on the passenger side of the front.
Compliments, guys.
There was blood all over the cab on him, and I was 99.9 certain he was dead. And it was at that point that I retook the description of the suspect, and that's when I was told it was a white male. I couldn't get to the radio fast enough at that point to let everybody else know. The kids had told me that whoever had done this crime left the cab, went out the door, seemed to be wiping the cab down, reaching into the cab, and then ambling or walking down Cherry Street in a northerly direction, kind of towards the Presidio. I walked out.
The last few ones we've done, short and boring and all this. I owe you guys this one, and I put some time into this with this documentary and everything, guys, because this is a real interesting case, and I wanted you guys to get the best I could do on this one, guys. So we're gonna be here for a minute. I mean, not forever, but it's not gonna be like those short, like little things we did the last few ones. So this one I'm making up on for the last ones, guys. I promise.
Technique I knew so I didn't get my
Crikeys.
head blown off. Got down to the corner of Jackson Street. Had to make a choice. I was on the east side of the street, so I turned right to the east. Went up in that direction. I couldn't see anybody in either direction, nor could I see anybody scaling a wall at the Presidio.
Right,
Got
exactly.
all the way
Drift.
down to the
I agree on
next
that one,
corner,
guys.
which was
You didn't see
Maple.
that.
Decision number 2, which way to go? Look to the left towards.
Drift says they were so close to him that their description is that of Alan the way he was in the film. Anyway, I'm sure they nailed the real Alan, but who knows? I agree.
Presidio. Saw
David said,
absolutely
"Crikeys."
nothing. It was much darker there. I figured the chance of finding
That's
somebody
not
was
a
almost
noise.
nil.
This is
I
a
turned to the
noise.
right, and I saw a man walking his dog.
Thank you, Mr. David
This
James, sir. I
somewhat
appreciate
older
you.
description I had, a whole lot thinner.
Your opinion
and
is
he had
important, my
absolutely
friend.
No blood on his clothes.
I'm sure you'll
I asked
grade
that
me
gentleman
well.
if he saw anybody walking in the area, and he told me no.
We turned west on Jackson Street. As we approached Maple Street, I noticed on the north side of the street a white male adult dressed in a derby or three-quarter waist-length jacket with elastic at the waist and on the cuffs and regular flat down the sides. He had a crew cut. He was wearing rust-colored pleated trousers, which were unusual for the time. He had on engineering-type boots, low-cut shoe, three-quarters of the way in length, tan in color. The initial radio description of the suspect was that of a black male, 5'10", or something like that. Seeing that it was a white male in an affluent neighborhood walking along the street, we didn't think it was a suspect. So we proceeded the next block, which was Jackson and Cherry. Turned southbound on Cherry Street, saw Armin Pelicetti, one of the officers who had responded directly to the scene.
At that point, Officer Dan Falk, who was accompanied by what I believe was a rookie officer, Eric Zelms at the time, pulled up very quickly in their police car.
You know, it gets me, guys. I mean, this tells you. I don't mean to keep interrupting, but this is what I'm doing. But if you're listening to these guys talk about this and their memories like this, with names and everything that they're talking about, that tells you how imprinted this case was into these guys' minds and their lives. I mean, this case was the case, folks. Seriously. These guys, every one of these guys were wholeheartedly involved in this, 100%. So to be able to remember these guys' names and times and streets and the directions they turned, I mean, that's impressive to me, especially at some of these gentlemen's ages now. And when they did this story, I mean, it's crazy, folks. It shows the dedication that they had involved into this case and the time they put into it, again, something I just thought that needed to be pointed out.
Called out to me, did I see anybody? Did I know anything about where the suspect could be? I told him no.
He stopped us and said that he was looking for the white male that had just gone down the street. There was a little conversation about what the initial description was, and he said no, he was a white male. I then used a slang term and said, oh, that was the suspect.
He did not mention to me that he had seen anybody at that point or had stopped anybody.
We turned around to get to the Presidio, and my reasoning on that was because turning down Maple would lead through the Presidio wall directly into Julius Kahn playground, which had a lot of foliage. So we turned, went down looking for the alleged suspect in the area of Julius Kahn playground. Nothing was observed.
I got back to the scene, and it was sometime shortly thereafter that the ambulance crew, the coroner, a fire truck, Inspector Walt Crackey of the homicide detail, and then about 3 or 4 minutes, 5 minutes thereafter, Inspector Dave Toski and Bill Armstrong, two of the best, arrived at the scene. I briefed Inspector Toski, who seemed to be taking the lead on the investigation, as we walked over to the car. I assured him nobody had contaminated the scene, and then I went about uniform business and let him take care of his detective work.
In his violent movements, or rather the violent periods that he has been in, he's an absolutely ruthless, completely merciless killer. He calmly goes about his business of, in one case, telephoning the police, and another tearing a strip off the shirt of the dead body of the immediately killed victim. He doesn't get great excitement over it. He just
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
he thinks killing is just killing. So somebody like that is going to be a very serious problem for us.
Can you guess how fast you were driving down the street when you saw him?
Well, until I saw him probably about 35 or 40 miles an hour on a 25-mile-an-hour street. Slowed down as we passed him. I don't know, we're still rolling. Saw there's a white male, step on the gas. 5, 10, 15 seconds tops from first spotting him to passing him.
I spoke to Officer Falk later that evening, and was unaware that he had stopped anybody, black, white, or any other color. However, in subsequent conversations with him, he told me that he did stop somebody.
We never stopped the man. We never talked to him. That is an emphatic statement by me. I wouldn't make the denial.
He told me he saw a man walking by and that he asked him, "Did you see anybody go by?" The person said no.
1 month later, when the composite drawing came out at Richmond Station and was posted on the wall, he looked similar to the man that I had seen on October 11th. I then wrote a scratch or interdepartmental memorandum to my lieutenant to forward to Homicide Division so that they would have the additional information about the appearance of the suspect.
I believe that Falk would have been honest, but that scratch and what he told me do not coincide. It seemed Officer Falk, in that amount of time, felt that he had stopped the Zodiac.
We did not stop the Zodiac. We didn't stop anyone. I wish Eric Zelms were alive today to tell you so.
Well, it's very hard to say whether he did or not. It'd be a point of conjecture at this point, and he seemed quite upset.
It is purported in the works of Zodiac, unmasked, that I tearfully told Inspector Tashi, "You know, Dave, we could have been killed that night." I never spoke to Tashi that I personally know of or remember. He may have been the inspector who came out and asked me about the composite drawing, and I told him the suspect was older and heavier. Beyond that, I had no further contact with the investigation.
Falk was also very clear as to what the person was wearing. Well, it just so happens that area is extremely well lit, and I cannot imagine his not seeing the shine of blood on the clothing if it had been Zodiac. I feel bad for him if he believes that was the Zodiac. I don't think it was.
I would like to say the Zodiac made eye contact with us, but I can't picture it. I remember seeing his eyes. I couldn't tell you what color they were. It was dark enough that his eyes were concealed. But you could say he sort of looked down. Perhaps this lumbering gait, stumbling along like a semi-limp, might have come in
Thank you,
my
Heather.
mind because he was putting his head down when he spotted the police car and turned into the entranceway of the house. By entranceway, I mean stairs leading up that are concrete to a path that leads to a front door. Never saw him get to the top of the stairs. You want the address of that residence? Jackson Street. I never put it in the report, and I don't think that I've told anyone.
Why didn't you put it in the report?
I didn't think about it in the report because I assumed
The
that
memory
he
kills
didn't
me.
live in the neighborhood, a upper middle class neighborhood. I don't know if he lived there or he didn't live there. Let the inspectors follow through.
It didn't seem like an important piece of information, though, that a possible suspect had walked up to a house and murdered.
I thought that's what I wrote in the scratch all these years.
The Zodiac killer.
That was the address that they followed that person up to, but they can't dox it.
Newspapers and the police, recounting his crimes, threatening more murders, and making Bay Area residents very edgy.
Very
Nobody
possible,
at San
David.
Francisco was
Very
aware of any
possible.
Zodiac until the murderer wrote to the Chronicle and included that torn piece of shirt from Mr. Stein.
That's okay.
School children make fine targets. I think I shall wipe out a school bus some morning. Just shoot out the front tire and then pick off the kiddies as they come bouncing out. What do you do to protect yourself?
Now, understand, folks, is one of the reasons
in San
why
Francisco we have been since the first day, since the reception of this. No.
One of the reasons why that was one of the reasons right there why they had looked into Mr. Allen, and it was because he was a scorned, quote unquote, scorned ex-school teacher. In turn, they thought that was one of the reasons why they thought it was him, because he was angry about losing his job, blah, 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 so on and so forth. Which, luckily, that never happened like that. But, you know, just saying. Yeah, ex-teacher. Also, he was RSO, you know, so on and so forth. So that's why they had looked at Allen in that sense because of that. Another good point to think about.
And up to now and continuing, we have a number of plainclothes officers following buses in the morning and in the evening.
We have specifically requested that they alert their drivers to not stop under any condition if a shot is fired or if their bus is subjected to a flat tire by the sniper. Further, that they get the children down immediately and proceed with all speed out of the area. And to try and attract all the possible attention by blowing their horns, therefore get out of the situation.
There's naturally talk. Everybody's, I guess, tense about it, but they all seem to be in good spirits and all seem to be going on with the job. I don't know of anybody that's quit.
You're not afraid?
No, I'm not. No, not too afraid.
There was a real panic in a small community like Benicia. Benicia had a 10 o'clock curfew. Well, that was off after that.
I shall wipe out a school bus some morning, shoot out the tires, and then pick off the kiddies as they come bounding out. That was the threat of the Zodiac killer. Now, every day, police cars follow the buses, which would be likely targets. Officers armed with shotguns take the threat seriously.
I would say the paranoia of Benicia lasted a good 6 to 7 months. People were very concerned, and it escalated every time after another reported killing.
Right.
I suppose the Zodiac created himself as a media darling because the newspaper started getting full of Zodiac information.
Today, there was a possibly significant development in the terrifying case of a man who calls himself Zodiac and has boasted that he is responsible for 5 murders in the last 9 months.
What about the cryptogram in the letter? Does it tell you anything new about him?
Well, this letter that we received is just a short cryptogram, one line of symbols, which he says reveals his name. In the original correspondence we received from the Zodiac, he stated that his name was in it. The cryptogram in that letter was broken, except for the last 18 letters, and we have been unable to break it. We since received another correspondence from him, and that was unable to be broken. The experts felt that there really wasn't a message within that letter. Of course, we've already submitted this recent letter to our experts, and if his name is there, I'm sure it will be revealed.
It conforms with all the other material which we've seen from him in the past, yes.
Well, how can you tell it's authentic?
It's a matter of identifying the handwriting on a card.
Where was this postcard postmarked from?
It has no postmark on it. It was found in the post office. The postal workers found it before they even got through the cancellation machine.
We're just about in the same position. We're still following a tremendous amount of leads. We're getting a tremendous amount of information every day, not only from the Bay Area, but from all over the nation. As you know, we have heard from him ourselves through our local press, and recently he has written to an attorney here in San Francisco. But as far as any specific piece of physical evidence or any specific individual, we're no closer than we go.
At one point in time, I was asked to go down and listen to a
that's
tape,
my thought.
an interview that had been on the Jim Dunbar show. And if I recall correctly, Melvin Belli was asked to come to the Jim Dunbar show. And so I was asked to listen to the voice, and there was some interaction between
Very possible transporter.
Melvin Belli and Jim Dunbar. My recollection of that voice is that wasn't even in the range of what I'd heard. I think I told him that I didn't think that was the voice.
Talk to us. Just tell us what's going on inside you right now, Sam. Please.
I have headache.
Right. When have you had those headaches, Sam? In a long time?
Since I killed a kid.
Well, was it before December that you had the headaches?
Yes.
Were you in service that you might have had an injury in service? Did you ever fall out of a tree or downstairs? Were you ever unconscious?
I don't know.
You don't remember. Does aspirin do you any good?
No.
Doesn't do any good. Sam, that stuff never did me any good either when I had headaches. Sam, let me ask you a question. Did you attempt to call this program one other time when Mr. Belli was with us? And you what? Did you try to call us one other time about 2 or 3 weeks ago when Mel Belli was with us?
Yes.
And you couldn't get through? Couldn't get through? The phones were tied up? Was that it?
Yes.
Yeah. Sam, let me ask you this. There's some reason why you go to a particular doctor or a particular priest. There's some reason why apparently you wanted to talk to me or Lee. Is it that you feel that we have compassion for people who get in trouble? Or is it you feel that we can do something for you? Or is it you feel that we have enough integrity that if we promise you something, that we're going to stick to it? Well, let's find out why he wanted to talk to you. Why did you want to talk to Mr. Belli, Sam?
I don't want to be hurt.
It clearly was not the cadence, but it didn't seem like the voice as well.
I think a man that's sick, I think a man that's going into it.
It's been said that they do not believe that was Zodiac that called in, guys, because the voice was slightly different, and they in the end don't believe that that was him calling into this radio show at that time either. So, food for thought.
Storm, and it squares away with the pattern of the man from what objectively we know that the Zodiac did.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Oh heavens, with the doctor, the people who've called in here that want to give him medical help, he's not going to go to trial until we know that this man is
very possible,
is a
David,
human being in front of a judge. In other words, he's got to get his headaches cured. That this man, objectively, without even seeing him, I think any psychiatrist would say that this man is sick.
Why can you not make any promises to the man who Belli? Because we don't know if Mr. Belli represents him, number one. But number two, we don't know the circumstances that would be evaluated and what the results of our evaluation might be.
So now, Jim, I have to talk about what we've gotten into about
exactly, Drift.
Whether he's
like I said, I still let you run the show.
I know that this fellow is going to call again. If he doesn't meet out there.
Were all the calls from the same person, or do you feel there was some cranks?
Not only were they all that we heard on the air from the same person, but the one time that I talked to him privately with no one listening in, no questioning but what that was the same voice.
And as you know, as soon as he's brought to our attention, we'll have no comment to make on the case because the man is entitled to a fair trial. I will state this categorically. He will receive a fair trial, whoever he is, and he will receive the consideration that any criminal who is brought to our attention does in the administration of justice.
From all of your investigations, what can you tell us about the Zodiac?
Not a great deal. He's not an unintelligent man by a long shot.
We are learning more all the time, but I'll put it this way, there is no one suspect that we're focusing on at this time.
And we've had numerous men assigned to the investigation, as high as 12 at some times, and dropped off to the original men, Inspectors Armstrong and Hosky, who are handling the case. They are out of town today. They're pursuing leads in the investigation.
This week we're in the city of San Francisco. We're here to take a look at a cunning and evil man who for years has taunted police and terrorized Northern California. His name is the Zodiac Killer.
Who is the Zodiac?
Yet to be
It's
caught.
clear.
In the
70s by a man who called himself the Zodiac Killer. He claimed 37 murders. Police confirmed at least 6. 4 years ago.
The Zodiac poses more questions than it answers. Questions like, why has he only communicated twice in the past 9 years? Has he killed at that time? For the last 9 years, the Zodiac investigation has been headed by Homicide Inspector David Koski.
I have always felt a gut feeling that he was not dead and that he was out there somewhere and that he would communicate. I was always hoping that he would communicate and not commit an act. A letter I can handle. Are you confident you will?
They did good with that detective as well, Drift, in my opinion. The way that the actor, the part that he played for Toski, I think he did really good, in my opinion.
Get him sooner or later.
Yeah, Mark Ruffalo.
Well, of course, that's I feel that about all the murders we're involved
The Hulk.
in. I mean, that's our business and that's our job, and that's the only way to look at it and approach it. Is that, of course, the best you will get him.
Right. All right. All right, everybody. I'm going to give you, and that was pretty much, no worries, Jody. I'm not Paul Avery, right? They all, even Paul Avery even wore that that pin on his jacket because they threatened his life. They were all getting death threats and whatnot too. So there are so many people that have been. Let me show you something here real quick. Researcher is 100% sure this is the Zodiac. New suspect. Check it out. Of course, I don't believe it. Okay. Let's see. David said, like Bundy said, do a crime in one state, leave the state, make the body leave the state. Job done. Why? Because back then they didn't have the internet. That's right. It was very hard for that stuff. All right. Let's check this part out here real quick, folks, and just. No, that's a fact right there. That's a fact, Drift. It was not a good time to be a bus driver or a journalist or reporter. These are facts. All right.
Zodiac killer. As of 2016, the Bureau of Justice Statistics claimed that the United States has almost 18,000 law enforcement agencies. However, according to another study, only 7% of those jurisdictions have teams devoted to addressing cold cases. There is a glaring deficiency in the available resources for missing people and cold cases. This shows that there is room for crowd sleuthing, since it is ideal that someone is focusing on unresolved crimes, right? By using the power of the internet's combined information, one might claim that internet sleuthing is helping authorities in making society safer. Yet the question remains, may this vigilante-style criminal fighting pose a risk? Or can decades-old crimes be solved by passionate civilians? Welcome to Bad Things. In this video, we look at a very strong new suspect in a decades-old case that still captivates the collective conscience of those wanting to know the identity of the infamous Zodiac killer. It has been said that this is the most famous unsolved murder case in the history of the United States. As a result, it has been ingrained in popular culture and has motivated many amateur investigators to try to solve it. Between December 1968 and October 1969, the Zodiac committed 5 known murders in the San Francisco Bay Area. Zodiac suspects come and go in the internet realm. Suspects are put forward, investigated, and are either thrown out or question marked by the internet's amateur investigators.
Very true.
A new suspect has been thrust into the spotlight by a payphone. Over the last decade, Mike Morford, also known as True Crime Guy, and more, has been conducting research and writing about true crime cases. He has devoted a significant amount of time and energy to researching not just the Zodiac killer case, but also a number of other crimes, such as cold and unsolved cases, murders, missing people, and serial murderers. Morford has, in his own words, put his reputation on the line and claimed that he is 100% certain that William McDuff Andrew is the Zodiac killer. Darlene Ferrin and Michael Mageau arrived at Blue Rock Springs Park in Vallejo, 4 miles from the Lake Herman Road murder scene, Just before midnight on July 4th, 1969, and parked. While the pair sat in Ferrin's car, a second vehicle entered the parking lot, parked near them, and then quickly left. This vehicle returned.
One of Dr. Balai's servants, or maid, I guess you could say, had received a phone call when he was out of town. And this is what Drift is talking about. And she answered the phone, said he was out of town. Could you take a message? And he said, I need to kill. It's my birthday. December 18th was his birthday. And that is when Mr. Greystone figured out by doing his investigating that he did, that it was Arthur, and like flipped out and ran to Toski, and boom, 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 boom. And that's, by the time they tried to question him, he had a massive heart attack and passed away. Yeah, she was pretty hot. I'll be honest with you, guys. If you look at her, she's a hottie. But anyway, so yeah, that's how that went down, Drift, for 100%. And you are absolutely right, my friend.
And around 10 minutes later and parked behind them. The driver of the second automobile then exited his vehicle and approached Ferrin's vehicle while holding a torch and a 9mm Luger. The man directed a spotlight into the eyes of Mago and Ferrin before firing 5 shots at them. Both victims were struck, with multiple rounds entering Mago and Ferrin. The assailant left the vehicle, but upon hearing Mago sobbing, returned and shot each victim twice more before fleeing. At 12:40 a.m. on July 5th, 1969, a man called the Vallejo Police Department to report and take responsibility for the assault.
That's true too, David.
The caller also claimed responsibility for the killings of Jensen and Faraday 6 months before. 3/10 of a mile from Ferrin's residence and just a few blocks from the Vallejo Police Department, police tracked the call to a phone booth in a gas station at Springs Road and to Tuolumne. Ferrin died, and although he was shot in the face, neck, and chest, Mago survived the attack. Mago described his assailant as a 5'8", 195 to 200 pounds, or probably heavier, Caucasian male between 26 and 30 years old, with short, light brown, wavy hair. Mike Morford concluded that the Zodiac must have lived close to the Springs Road and Tuolumne payphone and walked to the payphone after the murders, in case his car or clothing used during the murders would be recognized by a member of the public or law enforcement. Morford started investigating people in the area and came across William McDuff Andrew. This is where the evidence started piling up. There is a fine line between coincidence and evidence. Morford's evidence is extensive and leans towards too many coincidences not to be true. William McDuff Andrew grows up in Vallejo in apartments linked to his father's real estate firm, 500 feet from the Springs and Tuolumne crossroads. McDuff graduates from Chico State College in June.
I'll be honest with you. This guy right here looks just like the composite drawing. Just like it. But moving on.
1968. Faraday and Jensen were slain on Lake Herman Road, about 7 miles east of McDuff's parents' home, on the outskirts of Vallejo, on December 20th, 1968. Just before midnight on July 4th, 1969, Ferrin and Mago were assaulted by the Zodiac near Blue Rock Springs, about 4 miles northeast of McDuff's parents' house. Mago characterized Zodiac as 5'8" tall, 195 to 200 pounds, overweight, with a large round face, between 26 and 30 years old, and without glasses. McDuff was 24 years old, 5'8" tall, 200 pounds, overweight, with a wide round face, and he sometimes, but not always, wore glasses. 30 to 40 minutes after the Blue Rock Springs assault on July 5th, 1969, the Zodiac phoned police from a phone booth around 500 feet away from McDuff's parents' residence. McDuff's cousin in Deer Lodge, Montana, is evaluated by a physician on September 21st, 1969, owing to illness. 4 days later, McDuff's cousin is re-examined by a physician after deteriorating, and it is found that she has bronchopneumonia. The Zodiac attacks at Lake Berryessa in Napa County happen on September 27, 1969. During a conversation, the Zodiac mentions being an escaped convict from a jail that is thought to be located in Deer Lodge. Paul Stein is murdered by Zodiac on October 11, 1969, in San Francisco. On October 13, 1969, McDuff's cousin
Sounds
passes
like
away.
a plan.
On the same day,
We can make
the
a whole
Zodiac sends
show
a
out of
letter
it,
with a
Drip.
portion of Paul Stein's clothing.
I'm down
Officer
for
Richard Raditich was shot and killed on June 19, 1970, in San Francisco at 666 Waller Street. The Zodiac hints in a letter dated June 26, 1970, that he murdered Raditich. McDuff lived at 551 Tuolumne Avenue in San Francisco, just 0.2 miles from the Raditich incident. In March of 1971, Zodiac mailed a letter. There wouldn't be another verified letter for another 3 years. McDuff began working for the state of California in the spring of 1971. At the conclusion of his 30-year tenure, he was a jail sergeant. In 1971, Bigger Bride and her family moved from another state to Vallejo. McDuff is reported as
Now, there you go, David. If they go with this guy, he was in law enforcement. See what I'm saying? There it is, David. I mean, I've always felt, you know, the whole law enforcement officer situation makes sense. Just saying.
Living in his parents' new house in Vallejo in 1973, which is within 500 feet of their former residence. Zodiac wrote his first letter after 3 years in January of 1974. In 1974, McDuff gets engaged. 1 month later, the Zodiac sent his last verified letter. In October 1974, McDuff marries and moves to Vacaville, 300 feet away from a couple that received a letter containing baseball tickets from someone purporting to be Zodiac in Vallejo in 1969. In December 1990, a possible Zodiac postcard was sent from Eureka, California. In the 1980s, McDuff bought land in the Eureka region.
That I don't know.
McDuff dies in Oregon in 2014. In August of 2015, McDuff's widow writes on her blog that she discovered a box of her husband's old belongings that she named the Guilt Box, with the word guilt scrawled on the side. The box included a copy of The Code Breakers by David Kahn, the same book that experts think Zodiac used as a reference to develop his ciphers. McDuff's wife notes that he first read the book in 1980, but had lost his original copy. Because he liked the book so much, he ordered another copy, which could be found in the box. McDuff was licensed for one of his responsibilities, which was to instruct prison guards in the use of handguns, rifles, and shotguns. McDuff's writing resembles that of Zodiac. During the 1960s and 1970s, he was highly interested in Freemasonry. This may explain the use of symbols used by the Zodiac killer. Morford explains why some of the timeline has nothing to do with the killings by saying, in working closely with GSK investigators, one thing I was made aware of was that they felt there were going to be life changes in his life that facilitated his stops and starts in activity, a new job, a marriage, birth of kids, etc. They felt that when he was caught, they could look back and see what those triggers were. Sure enough, D'Angelo was caught. Turns out that the birth of his first daughter coincided with his pause in killing, and the birth of his second 5 years later coincided with the next murder. For some reason, major life changes often reflect in a serial killer's crime spree. Since Mac's brand new job with the state lines up with the pause in Zodiac letters in 1971, and his engagement and marriage line up with Zodiac's resuming and final letter of 1974, I think we may be seeing the same thing here. As with any circumstantial evidence, there will be detractors.
The way the
I'm not sure Zodiac would look
angle
that
is
close
to
to a
it, it
location
absolutely
where he
does.
could be easily identified. I could be wrong, but seems ultra risky, even for him. Would he risk being identified by someone nearby when making the call? Without clear DNA, fingerprint, or ballistic evidence, all the suspects in the Zodiac case are just that, suspects. With the advance of technology and probable cause, we may one day know the identity of the Zodiac. Until then, the internet sleuths will keep investigating, clashing, and hopefully find that golden exit to the rabbit hole that is the Zodiac case. Will it be William McDuff?
I told you guys, there's multiple suspects that have been called out as far as
Top Zodiac researchers.
There's a lot of researchers that have researched this case, guys, and they have, I mean, I'm not kidding. There's been quite a few people that have been listed as suspects in this case because a lot of things match up. The guy, or the one that you just watched, he's really been into it, as well as the Golden State Killer. So, you know. And so, yeah, if you look at the handwriting samples and stuff, it definitely is, in my opinion, a lefty. And the handwriting was kind of chicken scratchy, you know, like juvenile. So, you know, anything they've had, David, for years. I don't really think there is a lot of that stuff, you know. Otherwise, I think they would have cross-referenced any DNA and stuff. They had fingerprints. There's a lot of handwriting samples. Of course, you know, the Zodiac letters and stuff like that. Forensically, they have that. They have fingerprinting. I don't think there has, from what I've seen, there's not any kind of DNA that I've saw. He was very careful, folks. Very careful. Those are facts. And that was another thing. Thank you. Good point, Jody. And that has been looked at too. That maybe, and that would be why it looks like chicken scratch, because right-handers that write left-handed don't do a very good job. I've tried. And if he was doing it to be unnoticed, you know what I'm saying? That's a very big possibility. And that's been done by a lot of people that are trying to commit forgery, fraud, things like that. A lot of criminals do stuff like that. So, and that was the thing. Thank you, Drift. I was just getting ready to say that Allen, Mr. Allen, one of the main suspects, as I told you guys, was left-handed, but was forced to write with his right hand, as they did back then, because lefties, being left-handed back in the 50s and 60s, guys, was like having a disability. They didn't believe that you should be left-handed, so they made you write with your right hand, even if you were left-handed. It's a weird thing. You know, a lot of the things that went on back then were weird. Yeah. Back in those days, David, you're absolutely correct. Anybody could be a cop back in those days. You didn't have to have any kind of real special schooling or training. It was just, you know, a lot of my grandfather, I think I had told some of you guys, who was murdered, was a sheriff in a very small town in Virginia, and became the sheriff because he wanted to be, and they liked him. And that's how things went back then. He was in the South. You know, he was a big guy. He was strong, and he was a good shot with a gun. That's what got him to become the sheriff. They lined up, from the story I was told, they lined up 5 guys. They lined up a bunch of cans or bottles or something, and they saw who the best shot was. My grandfather, great-grandfather, I should say. No, great-great-grandfather. There we go. It was, no, my grandmother's father. So great. Yeah. Anyway, he won because he was the best shot and the strongest guy there. So that's how they became sheriff. I mean, if that says anything. Miami-Dade County was run by Colombians. I can believe that. Yeah, 100% can believe that. Wow, that's crazy.
Is this the real Zodiac killer? As of 20...
Sorry, guys. When they do that, it messes with the brain. It absolutely does, guys. It absolutely does. And there's a lot of people out there that were ambidextrous, you know, that still are, and they can do both. Let me see. I'm just trying to think of some of the names of the suspects that over the years. Paul Dorr, that was one. Of course, Mr. Allen. Good God, I'm trying to remember. I had notes that had a lot of these guys. This is Mr. Post. Gary Posty, or Post, however you pronounce it. Paul Dorr. The guy that we just talked about. And then they said that there was a thing about Mr. Post, that he is, then he isn't, then he is, then he isn't. I mean, so it's so undecided. Yes, we are going to do that, Miss Heather. Thank you for reminding me. So, everybody, We have two choices for Monday's show, Monday night show. Again, well, the first choice is going to be Henry, the Portrait of a Serial Killer, and the original and only Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And those are the true stories behind those. So the first one is for Henry. And it's out. And we will see who the winner is. Again, Henry, it's called Portrait of a Serial Killer. Interesting movie. It's very it's messed up. I'll just put it that way. And then, of course, we all know what the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre is, based on a couple stories, actually. So we'll see how that works out. Trying to think of where you can find it. It is quite graphic, for sure, Drift. Which one is less scary? Probably Henry, Jody. If you're afraid of that kind of course, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie, was, you know, they went way above and beyond, and they put so much other stuff into that. Wolf Creek is a great one, which we will look into that too. Very interesting. Good point, David. I'm glad you brought that up. I had that way down at the bottom of the list from when I looked them up, but yeah. 1 second, guys. Yeah, Wolf Creek is great. I liked that movie too. 1 second, guys. Sorry. All right, everybody. Sorry about that. I had to blow my nose. What's left of it. So we'll see. And I'll tell you what, guys, because that is a good one. We'll see what happens out of these two. And then, you know, whatever the winner is out of these two, we'll do that one Monday. And then we'll do, I'll just call it, we'll do Wolf Creek on Thursday. I mean, I'll give you guys a choice, but I think you guys are going to want that one. That one's really good. I got a couple, actually, that would match up with Wolf Creek, too. Yep, it is. An Australian guy. He's the real knife. That's not a knife. This is a knife. Yeah, for those of you that haven't seen that one, that's a good watch anyway, guys. Wolf Creek is a good movie. Check it out. The book, in my opinion, was way better, but the movie's pretty good. But check that one out, and that is a true story, folks. Of course, Texas Chainsaw, the original one. 1 second, folks, please. Yes, he did. Yeah, it's a good one. Yes. And he used a knife.
That's not a knife.
I'm just saying.
This is a knife.
There you go, Miss Heather. Yeah, Heather is like the queen of all these movies. So if anybody can find it, she will. I don't know about the hat thing. I don't remember that part of it. It's been a long time. Yeah. Thank you, other guys. For those of you that are not familiar, actually, I think you're right. I think you're right, Drift, with the wide brim hat, Mountie style hat. For those of you that are not familiar, we do have TikTok linked up to the channel now. We have Facebook just for the channel and Instagram, folks. So if you want to follow it, check it out, become a friend it, whatever it is that you got to do, please do. It'd be great to have you guys in there. Very sadistic, yes. Yes, very sadistic. Yes, Heather is for sure. Yes, she is. Those are facts, David. Yeah, it's a good movie, Drift. It really was. And listen, Drift, I appreciate you speaking up in this. I like all you guys to be, show the interest and speak up during these, when we do these. It helps out. Because there's not, I know a lot about a lot of these things that we talk about, but I don't know everything. There's always something I may not know. And, plus I like when you guys get involved, that's important to me. It shows that there's interest. I really wanted you guys involved in this one because this one is one of my, I hate to say favorite because of what it is, but it is one of my favorite cases out there, guys. It really is. And it always has been for a long time. Yeah, I believe so, Drift. I believe you are correct. Let's see what the poll says. 62% of you said yes to Henry, and 37% said no. So makes me wonder now. Maybe I should just, you know what? I got an idea. We're just going to do it this week, folks. We're going to do Wolf Creek there. Henry or Wolf Creek. It's all on y'all now. We can do Chainsaw Massacre anytime. You got my interest peaked, David, because I love that one too. The story on that's great. Can I retract my vote and go for Knife Guy? You're a trip. You're a trip. Well, you're probably gonna change your mind now. Whoa. That one's at 100% already? No way. Let me see. Wow. Okay, so we're done with that one. So 100% of you clicked on Wolf Creek. Okay. End of story. We know who won that. So Monday night, folks, we're doing Wolf Creek. Wow. That was fun. You guys are a trip. Quite. Look how white I am. I'm very white. Give you guys a little bit of a... Let's see here. There's actually two of them, I believe. Just to give you guys a little look here. Now, don't understand it. We're going to do Henry eventually, but, here's your homework for the day. You guys got till Monday for this one, guys. So you got 4 days to try to pick this up. Who, me? Well, I'm gonna find out in the morning, Jody. I don't think I do at this point, but I got bad lungs to begin with, huh? And I got a head cold that drained my lungs, so 1 second here. Is a little quick preview. Yes, there are 2 Wolf Creeks, but the first one is the one we're doing it about. One second, guys. I think this gave me the whole movie. I don't want that. Here we go. This is better. This is the trailer.
Captain's log. So far, no sign of intelligent life forms.
Wow. That's awesome. Looks like we might be spending the night. What the hell? Just stay in the car.
What the bloody hell are you mob doing out here? Scared the shit out of me.
So, where did you move?
Oh, I get around. Never know where I might pop up.
What do you actually do?
I can tell you. But then I'd have to kill you. Let's fly.
What is that hat? What's that hat called, David, that he was wearing? It's a special name for those hats. That's what Drift was talking about. Yes, that's a fact, Drift. Let's see here.
I'm looking for the cream, sorry.
What cream? Sorry, guys. I can't think of the name of that hat. Now, you got me thinking about that now. Well, that's the movie, guys. If you can find it, that's what we're doing Monday night. So, they think he's a Vietnam vet that just lost the plot. Yeah, that makes sense too, David. You never know. Anybody can snap. For sure. All right. So what'd you guys think? I hope you guys enjoyed that tonight. Yeah, that's pretty much kind of what I was going to say, Drift, for a fact. What did you guys think of tonight's case, guys? Their story, however you want to go with it. I really enjoyed bringing that one to you guys. Like I said, I've enjoyed that case for years. And I hate saying enjoy, but it's like I've been interested in it, is what I'm trying to say. You know what I mean? And blatantly because it's unsolved. You know, to look at it truthfully, and that's just basically because it's unsolved. So it was okay. Just okay, transporter. Thank you, Heather. I appreciate that, hon. Very much so. So hopefully they will be getting better and better as we go, guys, and keep being decent. The last few I was very unhappy with the way they were brought to you, and because I had to cut things out of them and they were so short and this and that, and I was not happy. So I wanted to make sure I could do what I could do with this one for you guys tonight, like I said. And I hope you guys got the best out of it that you could. You know, again, like I said, it's still open. Imagine being 17 in a foreign country, taking what and who you want with no punishment. You'd never feel that way again. Some would miss that. Look at the Night Stalker. He was influenced by, oh yeah. Yep. We're going to do that one too. For sure. So, again, all very interesting cases, guys. All of them. And like I said, I got to offer my apology on the last few. They just weren't what I wanted them to be for you guys. So I will be doing my best to improve all of that as we go along, folks. For sure. And like I said, there's quite a few more. That are based on true stories. Obviously, I know that Drift was into that and knows a lot about it. David made some comments. Anybody have any comments about that one at all? Thoughts, theories, opinions, any of that stuff? Let me check something here. One moment. Kubra Joe. Oh, okay. Those hats are called Akuba hats. Gotcha. There it is, Drift. Indiana Jones. That's what I've always called it, as an Indy hat. Oh, it's on Tubi? What is the new movie that we're talking about, or the one that we just... Which one are you talking about, Jody? You mean Darlene. You know what, Drift? That's a big possibility. A huge possibility, actually. I have thought on and off if there was something to that, only because she knew who he was. Okay, that's what got me. Just as Michael, I can never say his last name, but as he had said when he asked her, who is that? And she said, don't worry about it. It's not important. Okay. That alone was, spoke volumes. You know what I mean? So that's a huge possibility, Drift. It really is. I'll be honest. Yeah, absolutely. And knowing what was going on, it's obvious, you know, unlike what Mike had said, she was out doing things she shouldn't be doing. And back then in those days, you know, like if a woman was stepping out on her husband or whatever, you know, that's a humiliating thing. Men didn't put up with stuff like that back then. And one way or another, something was going to go down. You know what I mean? So just saying, it is an interesting theory. I'd be interested to know that, to be honest with you. And another thing is that I'd like to look into the Golden State. Now that you brought that up, I'd like to look into where where and when, what was going on with Golden State back then, and when those were happening. You know what I mean? The gaps in between the times where they were, not getting any kind of letters from him or any conversation from him or anything, calls, you know what I mean? That, from some of these guys, they could have been having children, doing this in their lives, doing this and that and everything else. We all know what Golden State was doing, living like a normal life like everybody else for years, folks. I mean, years. And at this point, he traveled around and did some stuff too. So it's something to look into for sure. You don't park with 19-year-olds in Lover's Lane and to talk about Nixon and JFK. Not on a normal basis. No, you don't. That's kind of funny that you said that too. So there it is, folks. Just some true history there and true crime. Definitely interesting too. So I hope you guys all enjoyed it for sure. If anybody has any other questions, I'd be happy to answer them with what I have info-wise, which I have quite a bit. Alan was in prison for a dead period of letters. The Zodiac stopped sending swatches of bloody taxi shirt. He panicked after he was interviewed. Yeah, this is true. That's actually very true, my friend. Yeah, Lover's Lane. That was the thing back in the day. You can't do that kind of stuff nowadays. I'll be honest with you, Lena. Tubi's got a lot of stuff that I didn't think it had. It's a free channel, that I have on my TV. And they offer a lot of stuff. It's surprising how much stuff you can get from there. Wolf Creek is on there. Okay, Jody. There you go, guys. If you got Tubi TV, check it out. But that's your homework till Monday, folks. Yep. That was another piece of evidence. Maybe you should be working this case. Like for real deal, Drift. Seriously. Right. Yeah, I don't like Pluto either. I never really did. I just wasn't impressed with it. All right, folks. I got to say thank you once again for joining me. I think tonight was a good one. I was happy with it. Turnout could have been a little bit better, but it is what it is. Not everybody's interested in this stuff. I get it. No worries at all. And I thank you all for joining me this morning as well. I do have a doctor's appointment in the morning, folks. I'm thinking I should be done by the time that I usually go live in the morning, so you should see me. No worries with that. And I hope to see any of you that can be here, as always. And the table from community college, right? Again, thank you all for everything you do for this channel. I appreciate you all being here this evening and this morning. I see you, David. David, thank you for everything you do as well. The memberships, everything you do. You're an amazing member of this channel, David, and an amazing friend to me. And I appreciate you all the way around, my friend. So, guys, again, I love you guys to death. I appreciate every bit of what you guys do. Thank you, Drift. I appreciate that. And again, guys, I hope to see you all tomorrow as we do. I am tired, if you can't tell. I think my medicine that I was taking is kicked in too. The Dayquil crap finally woke me. But like I said, I hope to see you guys all tomorrow. You have a great rest of your night, guys. Do not change a thing about yourselves because you are the beautiful people do not forget to love yourselves and love each other, because that's all we got. You guys have a great one, folks, and I will see you soon. Bye-bye, everybody. I agree. It's great to have you back, Drift. It really is. Have a good one, guys.